What's up, people? Or one person, or four people. Man, every week when I set this up via Google Chrome, it's a different thing. So this week, for some reason, they've taken away the option of me setting up a live dashboard, which means you guys hang for a few minutes before I go live. And then I would show up. So anyway, I just hit the only option I have, and it took me to go in straight live. So there's just a few of us in here right now. What happened to the Zoom, says Adam. Yeah, I was going to try my Zoom camera this week. I just didn't really have time to set it up, to be honest, by the time I got in here. So it's a little finicky. One thing with the Zoom cam, these are great, by the way. I'll show you guys this right now. If you do any YouTube stuff or, that sort of thing. Oh, where the hell did it go? Okay, it was just sitting right here on my desk. Oh, there it is. Looks like that. It's a little Zoom Q2N 4K. This is a really, really nice thing for if you're doing any kind of, you want simple cam to do some recording, put up videos on Instagram or on YouTube, that sort of thing. But when I first tried to use this as a webcam, because you can hook it up and use it as a webcam, it was not working. And it was just like shutting off. I don't know, like Google Chrome would see it for a minute and then it would just freak out and lose the stream. So the other day I did a quick little live stream with it. What I did was I ordered a fast cable, USB, micro USB connector to a standard USB on the other end, just off Amazon for like $7.95. I got two of these things. And this is supposed to be a fast cable for fast data transfer and stuff. And I set a delay on the little Zoom Q2N. And I couldn't find anywhere online where somebody had figured this out. Everybody just said, oh, it doesn't work. I'm having problems, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, what if I set that delay up a bit so that there's a bit of buffering between the camera and the program, and if I get a fast cable? And it worked. I did a live stream with it the other day and just had it. It's not on, I took it off. I didn't leave it up on YouTube because I was just like, oh, this is just a test or whatever. But that seemed to solve the issue. It's a little sketchy when I first hooked it up, and then I set that, I bumped up the delay quite a bit in one of the settings. It's like, on the webcam setting, there's like a preference I found that said delay or something, and I turned that up. And there it was, worked fine. But anyway, this thing sounds really good. If you're like, Zoom has always sounded good. There's the little Zoom cameras and the recorders have always sounded great. They've always got these like stereo XY kind of configuration microphones in them. And you can turn on a limiter and it will not clip. You can put it right in front of a drum kit or something, or a loud guitar amp. And they're just like a cool tool for sure for sound. But the video was always kind of lacking and not so great. This one looks really good, I have to say, for what it is. Not bad at all. And I think I don't know, it's $2.99 or $1.99 or something. They're really inexpensive. I got it while I was in from the Zoom folks while I was in Germany at the Thomann event recently, and it's actually come in really handy. So anyway, that's a little tip if you want to get one. If you do YouTube and you want to try one out, just know you'll need a faster cable than what they provide you with the unit in the box, and you'll need to turn up the delay on the unit itself. Hi, everybody. What's up? I just got back from Sweetwater. I was at their Gear Fest, which is the first time I've been to that, which is kind of almost like a little mini NAMM Midwest thing. And maybe some of you out there were there. I don't know. I had a good time. I did a clinic for Line 6. First one I've done for them. That was basically similar to the clinic I've done for Sir in the past, where I track a song in the clinic. But with this one, I did it using the Helix, and I attempted to kind of make very sort of Helix-centric patches that would show off some of the cool capabilities of that unit. Using effects and stereo splits and things like that. And it was fun. I had to pack it all into like about 45 minutes or 50 minutes or something. That's all the time I had for the clinic, but it went well. I had a really good time. Let's see. SD Design says cleaning my apartment all weekend. I did that yesterday because when I got home, my place looked like a bomb had gone off, and I just had to clean for a while. I was vacuuming this morning, as a matter of fact. It was exciting. Philip says I should be installing some Thornbuckers in my 1957 reissue prehistoric Les Paul tonight. I'm going for vintage wiring. Does that sound sensible? Yeah, do the vintage wiring and let us know what you think. I'd love to know. Mike is up in the top chat. Thanks for doing the top chat, Mike. He says thanks for everything. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Chris Cams has been weeks since I've been able to join. Nice to see you. What's happening? Oh, somebody else is in the top chat. Scar My Guitar, what's up? And he says, hey, Pete, thanks for the content. We give away guitars on our channel. Pimp My Ride style. You have to collaborate with us. Send me an email. There's an email contact form on my website you can use. And we can chat about it. And Randy's up there. Randy Wilcox. Good man, that Randy Wilcox. He says, tried tuning in at work, but it's too loud. Have a good Sunday live. I'm sending Britt demos. Oh, yeah, that's right. Britt's going to cut some drums for you on some of your songs. I forgot about that. Cool. That sounds good. She'll enjoy that. She's been practicing. She's getting better and better. Sounds really good. And Mark Pritchard's in England. Who else we got here? We got Claudio. He says hello. Good to see all you guys. We got Port Perry, Ontario in the house. That's Robert. We got Mexico here. Oh, great to have all you people. 177 folks online. Key West. Who else we got here? Do I like the RJM PBC? That's Braxall switcher. The RJM stuff in general, I like. Really quite like it. It's worked great for me in the past. I have one of their switchers. I have one of their pedal board, the master pedal board pedal switcher thing that came out a number of years ago. I need to send a text 1 second, guys, here. Sorry, in live stream now. Okay. So, RJM, great success. If you guys can hear some drums, there's a session going on in the other room too as well. So it might be a little bit of drums in the background during this video. It's just how it is in this busy music making mecca of LA. That's so dumb. Anyways, what was I talking about? RJM. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. So I used to have one of their rack mount pedal things that was like a pedal switcher in a rack, and I used that. I think, what was my switcher back then? It was Musicom Lab, I think. I'm just gonna close the door out there, guys, too, because it's a little annoying for me having the drums going. Just shaves off 3-4 dB there of drums by closing the outer door there. So anyway, yeah, it was the 16 something or other, and it was a really good piece of gear. I used it in my rack to switch all my pedals then with a MIDI floor controller. And then the other thing I've used a lot from RJM is the Why Not, which is a MIDI AB box that'll go ABY, and it's worked great. I mean, they make great stuff. The nicest thing about the stuff, okay, I did a demo of a pedal board that RJM actually put together. It wasn't my board, and they sent me the whole board with pedals that they wanted on it, and that's on my channel actually. If you look for the RJM pedal board controller video, whatever, search YouTube for it and you'll find it. The video I made, and it was a fun challenge because I actually had to learn the whole unit and use their pedals and come up with a song and do something musical it's like basically using someone else's pedal board. But through doing that, I learned a lot about programming that unit. And it's just really well thought out. Like they've put a lot of, for instance, sort of, if you got a H9 and a DD500 or something, there's going to be presets already in there so that you can easily get MIDI'd up to your unit once you build your pedal board. And you can, okay, I want, MIDI channel 1 to control this, and I want MIDI channel 2 to go to the H9, and they've put some sort of easy connection stuff in there is the easiest way I can describe it in order to configure your pedal board easily, which is they're probably the only company that's got that going. The editor is also excellent, the computer editor for the RJM stuff. So overall, I recommend their products really highly, and they're just nice people too. They're good folks. I do like them a lot. So highly recommend their pedal board controllers. The PBC one that I have was just a little big for my board, so I use my Musicom Lab instead. That I've got a Mark V, but they're both great units actually. Okay, I'm working down here. Let's see. Sorry, the chat jumped to the end, guys, and so I'm gonna go around try and figure out where I was. Raging Chimera says he managed to catch a live show, only got about an hour before band practice. Well, happy to have you here, man. Thanks for joining. Great to have you here. Chris says he ordered a set of Thornbuckers for his PRS SE. How tight are they? The pickups for drop C sharp tuning. I mean, they're PAFE, so it's going to be more of that thing than some sort. I mean, tight. I don't really think about pickups as sort of tight or loose. Maybe I guess something with Alnico 2s and kind of if you push the output on them, they can be a little looser. To me, they sound a little warmer and midier, and it's more like the EQ of the pickup or something though than like an overall like tightness or looseness or something like that. But anyways, essentially, I love them for drop C sharp. I use them for all kinds of stuff. I mean, even heavy stuff. L Scott Music says you don't look too exhausted for all you've done lately. Thanks, man. I actually, when I was coming back from Gearfest, because I had to get up really early to go to the airport and all that, and it was, I'm on the 3 hours later schedule and stuff. And I'd just come from Germany the week before, and it was like getting up at 3 a.m. to go to the LA time to go to the airport. I mean, I got up at 6, and I was like, man, I am actually pretty fried. Like, flying a lot is just different than like when you're on the road in a band, you get in a van and you tour, it's a different thing. Or you get in a bus and tour, it's a different thing. You tend to get more sleep. The flying thing is the hardest, like flying all the time, as you know, because you're always getting up to these early flights and going to the airport and a lot of sitting around, changing planes. The flying is what kills you. And I've been feeling it a little bit lately because I've spent a lot of time at home lately. Actually, I haven't been on the road that much. And once I got off the road last August from Japan, I've been in town. And then all of a sudden, starting about, I don't know, March, I started flying a lot. Like I had just a bunch of stuff I've been flying to, and yeah, that's what burns me out. So yeah, I think probably around 4 or 5 today, I'll start crashing. I woke up at 5:30 today. I'm still jet lagged from Germany. Just haven't turned around. How was Toman, says Andre? It was great. Some videos coming out from there soon. I've almost got my Paul Davids video edited, which I made part of my So You Want to Be a Pro Musician series. I'm just talking to Paul basically about if you guys don't know Paul Davids, he's a YouTuber that's got he probably hates that term. I wouldn't call him just a YouTuber. He's a guitar player, musician, educator, that uses YouTube as his vehicle. But he's very successful. He's got, I think, about 1.2 million subscribers, and his videos are just really watchable, and there's great information in them. And he's got a nice demeanor and stuff like that, and he's a really good guitar player too. So there's a combo of things there. So I did a kind of video interview with him about like, how did you build this thing? Because he was just living in a really small apartment in Rotterdam and started making these videos, and he was teaching guitar locally and stuff, and started a YouTube channel not even that long ago, I don't think. And he's now it's his main source of income and business, and he's done very well with it. So I thought that'd be an interesting thing to shoot, especially at Toman, you've got access to all these great people, and so we sat down and had a good chat about that. So that's coming soon. He did a video with me about putting together a simple pedal board with like what are the 4 pedals that you need, and so we selected 4 from the store and made a pedal board. Actually, it sounded really good. We used a little so like maybe it was a Pro Junior or something, a little tweed amp. I don't even know, actually one of those little Fender tweed jobbies, and I think we had a Soul Food, a Sir Riot, a couple different delays, and a couple different reverbs, just to kind of experiment with different ones on the board. And we just dialed in pedals and stuff and made this video about like a simple pedal board. What should your first 4 pedals be? Really fun, actually. And it sounded pretty ripping, actually. It was like good on the video. I think the tones turned out really good. So I think he said he's going to put it up next week. So that'll be on Paul's channel, actually. Tim Quarters in the top chat. He says, was re-listening to Pete Thorn 2 this week. Man, Kyushu Blues is on fire. That's one of my favorite tracks, actually. It's one of the most fun ones to play because it's sort of one of the simpler tracks, more stripped down, not so layered. And thanks. I'm glad you like that one. That one was really fun for me, too. Kurt Biscara on drums on that, and I used my old Strat into the SL68 with I think I used the BAE Hot Fuzz in parts, maybe used a treble booster in parts, can't remember. I have to go back and revisit the tracks and see what I did. It's mics too. It's not an aux or anything like that. It's a 1960B style cab, straight cab with my 78 blackback selections in it. Brown Sound comment says Lewis. He says he has a theory that part of Eddie's sound, that's good, Mr. Eddie Van Halen, is lack of a buffer with long cable runs. This explains how he could have presence and treble on 10. I've had good results. Yeah, probably to some degree. You know, he did have a couple pedals in line, like the flanger and stuff. I don't know if those are true bypass or not. Great question. Is an MXR flanger buffered bypass? You know, as well as the Echoplexes were in line, and those have got preamps in them and stuff. So you'd have to ask somebody like Dave Friedman exactly like what the, you know, whether or not maybe it's low impedance coming out of an Echoplex going to, you know, but for sure he probably had a, you know, 20-foot cable going to a pedal board or 15-foot cable going to a pedal board, and then a string of pedals that were maybe of questionable bypass origin, and then into an Echoplex or two. You know, in the studio. I'm sure there was some degree of high-end roll-off going on there. Yeah, definitely. An interesting point is that, you know, I'll just throw some stuff into the mix, but you do see one of these, the Schaefer in the studio on those Van Halen 2 pictures, which are like staged, you know, those stage pictures from Sunset Sound, where he's got the practice bomb there with the Univox echo in it and all that, and he's standing there, you know, and it's like, but you see one of those sitting there, and it's like, oh, maybe he used the Schaefer in the studio, like Angus Young. Food for thought. Which would have boosted his amp and his sound. I really doubt it. I don't think so. I think that was probably just put there in the picture. But I think he did use the Schaefer wireless live for a while. That was, everybody used it. You know, everybody from Pink Floyd to, you know, AC/DC, to all kinds of bands were using that thing when it first came out. It was one of the first, you know, really, you know, you saw it prominently with all kinds of bands. Peter says that he had a blast at Sweetwater. Thanks for hanging out and answering questions. Yeah, man. I guess you were probably at the Line 6 booth after, eh? I went and did a Q&A after my main clinic, which was in a conference room there. It was fun. I had fun there. Is there a video of your clinic? The answer is I don't know. I had asked them to not actually post a video of it because I feel like my honest feeling about it is that I do so much on YouTube already that the clinic is one thing where I want to see people in person, meet them in person, not have people be able to watch it online and then go, well, I've seen it. Why would I go to his clinic? Because I've seen it on YouTube, so why go? Because it's going to be similar, you know. There's a format to the clinic. So I've been asking people to not post it. Now I asked Sweetwater not to, and then when I did an interview with Mitch Gallagher the other day, he's like, "So your clinic will be up online later, and folks will be able to watch it." And I was like, in the interview, I was like, "Oh, really?" Yeah, I just kind of let it slide, but I was like, and then I thought about it, and it's like, I don't really care. I guess, I mean, if they want to post it, maybe it does more. It's just promo, I guess, for the clinic. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about it. But I sort of just felt like it's, at least with the Sir one, we've been asking people to not film. You know, photos are fine, but I don't like people taking video of it just because it's like, this is the one thing I want to do outside of YouTube, where with the folks that I've met on YouTube and they kind of probably come to the clinic because of YouTube, I want to have a thing where it's just a one-on-one and it's not YouTube. It's just you know, where it's not somebody filming with their phone and posting it online or whatever. You know, I want the live experience, like the one-on-one, and also the interaction with people in person, where they can come in and ask me a question and I can talk to them directly. Just get away from the internet for a minute was my idea with the clinic, and just kind of I want it to feel like you're in this room with me more than you're watching me on the internet. Does that make sense? I don't know. That was my whole thinking with the clinic, was get people to, like, as those, you know, I basically set up a studio right there on the spot and say, okay, I'm going to show you exactly what I do, but I'm going to do it right here in front of you, like in clinic format. And So that's why I really didn't want it to be online. So, I'm not sure now after what Mitch said the other day. He might not have been aware. Sweetwater definitely, these companies, bless their hearts, but they're going to push you to do as much of that. They want content, just like everybody these days. So of course, they want to put up the clinic online. And I asked them, to not do it. But then Mitch said that the other day, and I was like, did that just go like right over? Is it just going to show up? Because there was cameras in there and stuff, and then I'll be saying, why did you do that? And they'll be saying, oh, sorry, we didn't get the memo. I don't know. I'm not bagging on Sweetwater. They were very nice to have me there and stuff, and it was fun. But they do, they want as much content as they can get. Okay. What did you take with you to Sweetwater? PT Sig, PT15. I just took my signature guitar. It was really a clinic for line 6. So I used my PT signature guitar, of course, but not the PT15 in this one. I used the Helix actually in this clinic to track. And the Helix is something I use in the studio to track, and I've got one sitting right here. I use it on bass all the time, and it's got great guitar sounds. I use it on some guitar on my record. So I thought, well, sure, why not? Why don't I just develop a clinic around the Helix? Now, there's this thing called Helix Marketplace that some of you might be a part of if you have one. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is probably make the track available that I track in the clinic. Put up the song, so you guys can hear the tones and the parts and stuff like that. And then I'll probably sell the presets on Helix Marketplace. Something that they suggested. Why don't you do this? Like, people are doing this, and you could be using it. And I'm like, okay, well, I put time in the presets. I made them. Let's put them on Helix Marketplace. See if anybody wants them. So, because I've had a lot of people ask me for Helix presets. It's about, I guess it would probably be my main bass preset that I use a lot to record, and then it'd be about 7 or 8 guitar presets, all kinds of different sounds. Yeah. When is your SIR clinic in DC, Baltimore? I think that's from Stephen Douglas. I think that's happening in August now. So they're just scheduling them right now. I'm doing some on the East Coast, and then in August. So I've got one coming up at Pitbull in San Diego, or south of San Diego. It's close to San Diego. And that's happening at the end of this month in about a week. I think it's a week from Friday. Well, I think it's next Friday, actually. So it's less than that. Yeah, it's in 6 days. Wow, I better practice. Make sure I've got that one still together. I've got to do my SIR clinics, change mental function, get into that mode, PT15. 6 days down at Pitbull Audio Dual Clinic. And so that's San Diego. So if anybody's in that area, please come out. But yeah, you were asking about Baltimore. August. Europe in September, I think. September, October. There'll be a bunch of European ones that I'm doing. Do you prefer in-ear monitors or wedge monitors? That's a good question from BC Rich 581. I prefer wedges, but they're not always practical. It's the short answer. The long answer, I could go on for 20 minutes. The medium answer, I'll try and give you quickly. There's some gigs where in-ears are great. If I have my, I love listening to the guitar in a natural way, coming out of the amp and being able to walk closer to sound sources and have them get louder and walk away and have them get quieter, which means I like wedges generally, or, just side fills and hearing my amp out of the cabinet. That's the best way to play music and hear music, communicate with other musicians, in my opinion. There's nothing like that. In-ears have this static controlled mix where it's like, now you've got this thing that's fixed and you could walk closer to the drums and they don't get any louder. So that aspect of it has always bothered me. That said, the good thing about in-ears, good things about it are you can control the volume easier. So you can keep the level down a little bit. On a great big stage, they can be a lifesaver, because especially if you're doing festivals and stuff like that, you can show up overseas, and be doing the big rock festivals or things like that, and you don't get any sound check for those things. That doesn't happen. You just hit the stage and go, and it could be like, like the kick drums, like 120 dB in the side fills, but there's no snare or hi-hat or whatever when you hit the stage. It can just be chaos. But if you show up with your own mics, if you're in a band touring with their own mics, first of all, on the kit and on all the guitars, And then many times the boards are kind of standardized these days. There'll be some digital board, and literally like the monitor guy goes in and plugs in his USB stick and loads up his preset or whatever, and it pops up. In theory, you go get on stage and the mix that you guys store, your whatever band you're touring with, whatever you stored in rehearsal just is there, and it just kind of works. These days, there's these new things that everybody's doing where they're mixing themselves on iPads, and this has been a new thing that's come in since I've been over in France and Japan and stuff touring. But I'm seeing bands now here doing their own mixes on iPads, where one guy on stage has an iPad and he's, doing that. And that's new to me. So I don't even know what that system is. That's a new thing that's come in the last couple of years. If you guys know any touring people or you do, gigs yourself, maybe you're hip to that. I'm not even sure what's going on with that, but it is kind of neat. So that's it. I think I'm fueled up on coffee too much, because that was just a question about whether I preferred wedges or in-ears. And I went off on talking about mixing consoles. Sorry. I'll try and focus. Abrax1 is in the top chat. He says, when you record guitar for your YouTube channel, are you mainly using IRs? If so, signal flow question. Load box to interface to DAW. Yeah, essentially. That's right. And yeah, I am mainly using IRs these days. It's taking forever to get a cabinet situation going here, which I aim to. That's one thing I want to tackle here in the next week or two, at least have an interim solution for that, because I do want to have at least one cabinet over in another room here that's mic'd and ready to go. All I really actually need to make that happen is to not be so lazy and just run a couple cables that I need to do. And also I need one more mic cable. Once I do that, I can actually get something set up in the other room, and it'll be pretty cool so that I can mic cabs. But there's another room here that I'm going to use. And what we really have to do is build a room inside that room for various reasons, and do it proper. But in the meantime, I'm going to set up a cab in there and just baffle it off and put things around it and stuff. And then I'll probably use something like the power station or something because I don't want to bug too many. It's isolated enough that I think as long as I'm not cranking a plexi through it or something, if I can just keep the volume down a little bit on the mic'd cab, it'll work pretty good actually for what I'm just envisioning it. So a little bit later on this week, I should have that set up. Your signal flow question. Yeah, essentially you come out of the load box, say it's a surreactive load, line out to the recording interface. That's right. To DAW. That's right. If you want to run through something like a, like a mic pre or something, to like something with a transformer in it, like a Neve or something, you can do that. It's not really necessary. I don't think. Not really a necessary thing, but you can do that on the way to the interface to the DAW. All right. Moving down. Helix or AX8? Sounds, thoughts? Well, I've used both quite a bit recently. Like I just did this clinic with the Helix. The AX8 I've been using for the Queen, Ultimate Queen celebration with Mark Martel, which incidentally, I have a gig with them again. They have a regular guitar player, Tristan Avakian, but they've subbed out another gig to me, which is the second week of July, and it's in West Virginia. I don't know exactly the venue, but if anybody's out there, I'll be playing with the Ultimate Queen celebration with the amazing Mark Martel on vocals. So for that gig, yeah, I've been using the AX8, and it works really well for that. And that was just a function of it was like Tristan sent me his patches. I wanted them to feel comfortable and with a guy stepping in to do the gig that they weren't familiar with. So I thought I'll just use his patches if they sound good, and they did. Sounded great. I do a couple things different than him. I actually hit the AX8 with a Cornish treble booster, and that's really fun and sounds really cool to me. But other than that, I'm using his patches on the AX8. It's great. It sounds really good. It's a little bit more of a complex unit to program, I find, and the sticky presets and sticky scenes and all that stuff, I still get confused by that stuff, to be honest, the instant access of it. But as with all things Axe Effects, if you spend some time with it and you're cool with the learning curve, you can get some great sounds out of them. That's been my experience always with Axe Effects stuff, with Fractal. I tend to think that it's really good stuff that just has a somewhat steep learning curve. And it's deep. They make them deep so that you can get in there and do all kinds of crazy stuff. The Helix is a bit of an easier ride. I haven't tried using the Helix for the Ultimate Queen celebration. I'm sure I could get some great results and try it. Maybe I will. But the AX8 has been working out great. I use it with one of their fractal expression pedals for doing some cool stuff. When we played Another One Bites the Dust, the kind of like crazy wacky delay echoplex stuff in the middle. I was using it for that, and it worked really great with their expression pedal for that stuff. And then I'm just using it as a volume pedal as well on some stuff. Anyways, does that answer the question? I guess ease of use and sort of a less steep learning curve. The Helix would be the one I would recommend. Great things about the X8 too. It's just a little bit of a deeper thing. It takes a little bit more time to learn, that kind of thing. Love to hear your thoughts about the elephant in the room, says Stephen Douglas. What's the elephant in the room this week? What is it? Gibson? Did I hit it? Do I have any music snail-like beside any music snail-like? What does that mean besides what's on Spotify? That's Kyle. Sorry, it's Kyle. I don't know what you mean. Snail-like. Sorry. Oh, available. It means I see. It was just a typo. Do I have any music available besides what's on Spotify? Yeah, there's stuff on CD Baby. Yeah, like none of Guitar Nerd is on Spotify. Only my Pete Thorn 2 album is on Spotify. So there's a whole album that's on CD Baby that you can't get on Spotify. For live performances, do I prefer in-ears or wedges? I just answered that one. Let's see. Looking for a great amp tech in Connecticut. No idea where to start. Anybody know a great amp tech in Connecticut? I don't know. This could be a good resource, though. Somebody might have a good suggestion out there. Bakersfield representing. That's David. What's up, Bakersfield? 3 hours north of here or so. Hey, Pete, can you help me understanding how the bright cap works in Marshall amps? Sure. So essentially what it does is it allows high frequencies through unimpeded as you're turning up the volume on your amp. So if you've got an amp with a bright cap on it, as you turn that volume up, those highs are getting through like full force beyond a certain frequency. As you turn it up, the rest of the frequencies come in, which is why the bright cap kind of mixes out of the circuit. It's not really like it's mixing out of the circuit as much as just everything else is coming through to fill in all the other frequencies. I don't really know why they did that on Marshall amps originally, or Fender amps for that matter, with brights. But that's essentially how a bright switch works on a Fender amp as well. You turn on that bright switch, it's letting all those high frequencies through, regardless of where that volume pod is. It can be a great thing. It can be too much for some people. It is sort of part of the signature Marshall sound. And if you run a Marshall kind of hot, like if you've got that, like say on an old Super Lead or, Plexi style amp, if you've got that volume control anywhere above 4 or 5, it can, if it's an aggressive, the value of the bright cap, if it's letting lots of highs through, depending on the value, some, you can voice them to let less and less highs through. You go higher in frequency and then you hear it less, basically. Depending on that value of that cap, and where you set that volume control, it's sort of part of the signature sound. You might find that the amp has a sweet spot more when there's a bright cap, where it's like, man, it's way too bright down here and it's just ice picky. But as I bring in the volume in, it hits this sweet thing, like right around 6 or 6.5 or 7 on the dial. Maybe anything from like 6.5 and above is great, but below that is unusable. That's kind of the dilemma with bright switches and bright caps. But at that 6.5 setting, or at 7, it's doing this aggressive thing that's really cool and adding kind of bite and clarity to the sound. And then if you take the bright cap out, what you might find is you've got a total sweep across the pot that seems quite usable, but it's not really got that aggressive thing anymore at the 6.5 or 7 setting, if that makes sense. That's the thing that you might miss then. So there's kind of no free lunch. But what you can do is experiment with the value of that, and a good amp tech can help you do that, experimenting with the value. And the lights get crazy when I move around. Sorry. Lighting changes. You missed my super chat, says Craig. Sorry, Craig. I didn't mean to do that, but you're up there in the top chat again. Additionally, there is increased dynamics, harmonics, and feels like You're inside a whole new amp. Sorry, I guess I better go back and find the first super chat. Uh-oh, we got a little moderation that I need to do here now. I'm going to try and be more on that this week if these crazy messages start showing up again, because that was really bad last week. Okay, I am missing your super chat here, man. I don't see it. Can you just ask the whole question again? And if you do it right now in the bottom, you don't need to be in the top chat again. I'll just find where you're saying you missed my super chat. Additionally, there is increased dynamics, harmonics, feels like you're inside a whole new amp. Can you discuss this? Sorry, I just don't know what you mean. So go ahead and ask away there. And while I wait for you to do that, I'm just going to grab another question here of some sort. Chris Schultz says, Pete, on your big pedal board, do you change anything going stereo to mono, or do you have a stereo some mono out? All I do, to be honest, is I just pull the cables in the cables that are in the sort of the post path for the H9s and the DD500. So the signal splits coming out of the first H9 to the DD500. That's where it splits to stereo, and I'll just pull those stereo cables. So the stereo half of the signal, the right path, I'll pull those out so that I'm not getting any kind of weird stuff going on with because sometimes when you plug them all in, then they're sending, like if I've got a ping pong delay, then it's sending one out the left and one out the right. And if you pull those cables, then it just defaults and makes a mono mix of those so that you get both the delay times of the ping pong will be right up the middle then. So that's all I do. I just manually pull the cables on the stereo stuff, and then they're in mono. And that's how I do it. Any UK clinics planned, says Stuart. Should be doing some UK clinics in the fall. Yeah, in September, late summer, like September, October, in the fall. That's when that's happening, like some Europe stuff. For the PT15 specifically, I'm going to write a whole new. I won't have it ready for the Pitbull clinic. I'm going to be doing the same tune in the clinic that if you've been to one of my SIR clinics that I used, with the reactive load and the PT100. So I'm going to track that song next week with the PT15 this time. But come fall in Europe, I'll have a whole new sort of, song developed and stuff like that to track in the clinic with the PT15. Chris Camp says, can never have too much coffee. I agree. It's good stuff. I do. I agree. Craig says, I've ever tried, I'm going to skip down to the end a little bit here. Have I ever tried a brown box? The brown box is a thing, I believe, that drops the voltage down to 100 volts for vintage amps. I haven't, but I really want one of those things. It's essentially a variac, so it'd be no different than running a variac on 100. But I do think, those old amps, in my basement, those like Marshalls and stuff, they just sound better. Like when you back the voltage down to one. Is a brown box 100 volts or 110? It might be 110, or maybe you can adjust it. I'm not sure about that, but I know the thing that you're talking about, and they do look cool. Essentially, they just drop the line voltage, and the old amps, like voltage used to be, I think it was 110. Wasn't 120 or 118, and nowadays, and it's kind of freaky when you look at what's coming out of the wall at your house. Sometimes it can be like pretty aggressive. If you get it like a meter and you check it, it can be like 127 volts coming out of the wall in your house. It's like that, like for an amp that was designed for 110 volts is maybe a little bit aggressive. So I find it it makes amps a little softer and sing a little bit more. For sure. And I think that's the way they were designed to be used anyway, and not stressed too hard. So you guys are talking about Gibson. Yeah, you're talking about what's his name? Mark, the guy that used to work at Norm's, and how he's made that video for Gibson. I didn't watch the video, by the way, so I haven't seen it, but I know he said basically like play authentic. And for those manufacturers out there that are sort of copying our designs, you've been warned and stuff like that, right? And then he took a lot of heat over it. And a lot of people said it sounded like he was reading off a teleprompter or kind of off a script or something like that. I don't know. In a way, I sort of feel bad for the guy because he was probably just doing his job. But by the same token, maybe it came off heavy-handed. I'm of the mind, just to address the Gibson thing for a minute, I'm of the mind that the guitar manufacturers out there, such as Dean, and we can include Sir in this. They've got the Aura, or anybody doing a sort of Les Paul influenced design. They are all well aware of the fact that Gibson can enforce, their body shapes, for instance. You can't do the lower horn cutaway exactly like a Les Paul. You just can't. You have to differentiate, and you can't do the headstock. You can't. So they all, like a PRS, single cut, or the I don't know what the Dean looks like, but I know it doesn't look exactly like a Les Paul, right? And the thing that they're trying to claim is that this could confuse people in the marketplace, right? That's what Gibson tries to complain. Well, from what I understand, and I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand, they sort of don't really have a leg to stand on, especially not after the PRS incident was decided in PRS's favor. So they're going to spend a lot of money, and they're going to try and bully, and they're going to go up against these companies, and I don't think they're going to prevail. That's my opinion. That's what I think, from what I understand from talking to other people in the industry. And I wish that they would just spend their time more on making great guitars. When you look at some of the guitars that they're posting on their Instagram, and they're the new sort of 50s Les Paul and 60s Les Paul, as well as those SG specials that have like the candy apple red finish. It's those guitars look great. It's like, Gibson, just do that, and just don't try and go bully and other folks and stuff. Just get back to making great guitars. You're barely out of the woods, if at all, probably, with people from the sort of whole Henry years and stuff. So just go and don't spend money on litigation. If somebody out and out copies a Les Paul headstock and the cutaway and the things you can protect legally, go for it. But if somebody's making a guitar that's just influenced by your guitar and it ain't that close, leave them alone and just make the best. Just win by making the best guitars that you can, and it's going to be better. Laurel is in the top chat, says, I have a 55 Les Paul Special in need of a fret job. I'm in North San Diego County. Any recommendations? My favorite guitar, and I am nervous. That's a pretty cool guitar. You want to go to somebody good for sure. I would say, you're in North San Diego County. If you don't mind coming to LA, I mean, like, I don't know a lot of people these days, to be honest. And if I was getting a guitar done, I have the luxury of saying, John, I'll do anything. Please refret my guitar, and maybe having Sir do it, but not a lot of people have that luxury. And I recognize that's a luxury. I would probably, Norick Renson would be my choice, to be honest, in LA, I think. Renson Guitar Repair, Renson. Really great. There was a guy named, Bobby Carlos in West LA. You might seek him out as well. He used to tech for Tom Petty and all kinds of folks, and he really knows vintage guitars. Obviously Tom Petty, and he worked for that organization. Those would be the two people that I would look to if I was wanting to refret something like a 55 Les Paul Special. But Norick Renson Guitar Repair, Norick's been around forever. I mean, he used to work for Sting and all kinds of people. So drive up, make the 2-hour drive or something, drop it off, and then go back and pick it up 2 weeks later, and know that your guitar is in good hands. I was looking for that other fellow. He was asking me a question it was Craig. Sorry, Craig. Trying to find if you asked your question again. I am making an effort here. It's hard sometimes. But I don't see it. Anyway, Craig, hit me up with your question, and I will try and answer it. Joe says, thanks for sharing. You're a badass. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Can you show us how you play the opening for Spirit of Radio? Steve, I guess you might have seen the Pan Rocks. Did you guys see the Pan Rocks thing that I did where I played with all the steel drummers? And we did the Rush tunes, Spirit of Radio, and YYZ, and what's the other song we did? Tom Sawyer. So that's how you do it. This guitar is, the string is kind of falling off the edge of the neck there. I wonder if I have another one where it'll work better. So that is to pull off from the second fret to the open note, F sharp to E on the high A string, D on the second string, open E, then do the same thing but replace the second fret with the 5th fret A, right? So back to the second fret, and that's a triplet. So pull off 4th fret to 2nd fret to the open note on the first string. Okay, that's how you play the beginning of Spirited Radio. And you got to do it with a flanger. That was really fun doing that thing. Mike Portnoy on drums. My favorite tune that we did was actually YYZ. And I figured out the reason that it's my favorite is because it was an instrumental to start with. So it was like the addition of the steel drums just kind of makes the most sense, playing the melodies and stuff. I don't know. It's a pretty badass version of YYZ, if I do say so myself. I think it turned out really good. So check out the Pan. If you look for Pan Rocks YYZ, Pan Rocks Spirited Radio, you'll see our versions of these Rush tunes we did with about 80 of us in the studio. And it was really, really fun. Let's see. Do orchestral instrument manufacturers go after each other like guitar builders? You know, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. You just made me think of when I was I'll do some moderation while I tell this story because this fucking thing in the chat is driving me crazy. It's like this automated thing that's posting in Arabic or something in the chat. It's so strange. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So at Toman, I did this video with Dan from That Pedal Show, and I was like, that's an amazing facility, right? They just have orchestral instruments. Speaking of orchestral instruments, they have a whole floor of pianos, but a whole floor of clarinets and a whole floor of saxophones and a whole floor of tubas. I mean, this room of tubas that's like, you know, easily 4 times the size of this room, at least, full of tubas. And I was like, dude, let's go shoot a guitar video in the room full of tubas. It's going to be great. And we shot it, and his camera messed up, actually. And it was so sad because then the room wasn't available again. We had to do it somewhere else. And but it was kind of magical doing a guitar video in the room of tubas. Anyway, my flanger pedal will make my stomach hurt if I turn it up too high. Does something with my inner ear. That's Brett. Yeah, they can tend to do that. I guess that's true. Jason Carter says Repair Zone is in Claremont. Maybe that's somebody was recommending for the fretwork, possibly. I'm going to work backwards through the end of the chat here just a little bit. Just for the heck of it. Hi, I saw that Amps in the Zone video of yours with the super reverb. Sounds amazing. They do sound great, and that was a really good one. My question is, how much of the sound is in the way it was recorded and how much of the amp itself? Really just the amp itself. I mean, to be honest, I just put a couple mics on it. I didn't do anything special to it. No EQ or anything. That's just the way that amp sounds. A good super reverb is just a beautiful... It's the simplest thing in the world. The guitar cable, the guitar, plug in, turn it up to 5. Mids on 10, I think, was the way I was running it in that video, which is how I heard, I think, that Stevie did it. I think that's how I ran it. Yeah, just, you know, it's the easiest thing in the world. Plug in, sounds like $1 million. And good super reverbs now, for whatever reason, you guys might have noticed this or not, if you've seen them around, they are going for cheap all of a sudden. Like, they're going for the price of reissues. I've seen super reverbs for, like, you know, used to be like a blackface super. I mean, they're heavy, you know, it's this big thing with 4 10-inch speakers, and it weighs a lot. And maybe people aren't into that anymore. Maybe they weren't selling, but the last few I've seen around, man, the deals have been just, I mean, I want to say, like, I've seen a few recently for in the 1,200 to 1,500. It's like the price of a reissue for an old one. Like, you know, you'll see a 67 for, like, it's crazy. So there's some deals to be had out there if anybody's looking for great tone and doesn't mind hauling around a super. Bill says, Pete, that's awesome. You just gave a lesson. No wonder everyone loves you. Hey, if I know a lick and somebody wants to know it, I'll show it if I can. That's what I'm here for, to be of service. Does an amp sound better from the floor or at ear level, a 212 combo? That's a great question. That's from Metalhead Hippie. You know, there can be something about the way a cabinet resonates with the floor, and there also is something about like amps don't maybe sound best when they're beaming right into your ear. But that is kind of the sound that the audience hears. So you want to strike a balance, I would say. It's not the worst thing in the world. By putting an amp, say, up on a chair or something, or a road case, and then you're hearing it like right at your head, you're kind of getting maybe not the most pleasant way to listen to it, but an accurate way to listen to, you know, the way that it's going to sound out front when it's mic'd and all that, probably. So it's striking that balance. Dave Friedman always says, and I find this kind of interesting, that a Marshall cabinet sounds best if it's here, and you know the head's here, right, and the cabinet's here. When you're standing about here, it sounds great. Playing guitar like on top of it, and it's kind of hitting your pant legs. It's and it's up good and loud. It sounds amazing, like right there. But when you're right in front of it, it's this beamy thing. So I don't know. It's part of what we have to deal with. But let's see. Would you ever do something like that? Thoughts on sites like Fiverr? You know what? I don't. I'm ignorant to what Fiverr is. You're saying $1,000 for a riff. I don't know. Maybe do I need to look into it? Is it something I should know about? John says, question, I'm using a PT100 in a cover band, and I'm thinking of a Boss ES5 switcher with my pedals or Helix HX doing the 4-cable method with a couple pedals in front. Thoughts? Any tone suck? I've had great results. I did a video recently, just a short one, where I was using the Helix HX with the PT15, and I thought it sounded great in 4-cable. You know, Steve Stevens is using a Helix HX right now, just in his post path. He doesn't use it for cable, but it's how he's getting his reverb and delay, and he's also using a gate, and he's using it with 2 Friedman heads in stereo, splitting to stereo. Using that, he has good luck with it. You know, I don't know. I think it's both things would be good. I mean, the Boss is cool too. Just go for it. Try one of them and see what you think. You can always send it back, right? If it doesn't work out, pretty easy to get one. It takes a minute to set up these things, you know, the levels like on a Helix, you know, matching it with the loop on your amp and stuff, and making sure, you know, that whether it's supposed to be an instrument level or line level, depending on how hot your loop is. And you need to spend a little bit of time with it. But I had great results. Watch that video on my channel of me using it 4-cable with the PT15. You can hear, you know, I'm all about it. I actually think it sounds really good. HX effects with the PT15. I think it's a killer little rig. I mean, just that head with that one thing, and I can channel switch the amp. I've got 3 channels and all the effects I could ever need. Pretty neat. Lauren, El Scott Music says, so how about David Gilmour's collection raising over 21 million for charity? I mean, I think it's amazing. You know, the Black Strat sold for 4 million, right? It's amazing. You know, when we think that it's just a Strat that was routed for a Kaler and had a mid 80s neck on it, but piece of history. I think the Wish You Were Here Martin went for $1 million, right? Pretty close, $900,000, $1 million. You know, it's crazy. And then the first Strat, of course, 001, not technically the first Strat, but the one with the 001 serial number. That's a, you know, pretty doubly sort of interesting guitar to a lot of people just because of that serial number. I mean, even if you weren't a Gilmour fan, and if you're a Fender collector, that would be pinnacle, I would think. When is the PT15 IR going to land in the UK, says JJ? So it's happening basically as we speak. Here's the thing. When they announce that you can get one, that means you're going to see it in the store. So that day, which ain't far off at all, basically what they're doing is making sure all the dealers have them. They didn't want to favor anybody or send some to, you know, have them in the States, but not in Europe for another 2 weeks or that kind of thing. So they've been really, really organized about building them all and a shipping schedule and getting them out to everywhere so that the day they say available now, it's everywhere. And I can't quote exactly when that's going to be, but I want to say it's, you know, well within a month, probably more like it's in the 2 to 3 week range that day will be from today. So I can't say an actual day, but it's within, you know, we'll be talking about it on this show, on this program within 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. I'll say, so what did you guys think? Did you get a chance to try it in your store? Because they'll be there. So it's coming really quick. Kevin Sir, I got to give him big props because he's been he designed this really ingenious method for the people there that are building it, because it's a new amp and it's like, how do you build this thing? You know, it's they get all of a sudden they get this thing. It's like different design, and they haven't, you know, they've been building Badgers or whatever. Now they got to build this PT15 amp. He designed this ingenious kind of iPad thing that explains it. John Sir, who I can't solder for shit, you know, and he said, dude, you could come down here and build one. All you got to do is go through the iPad and basically like flip through these pages, and it shows you exactly how to put them together. So he did that to kind of streamline the process, and also essentially, you know, it was taking, like, when they first started making them, it was taking 8.5 or 10 hours to build one or something like that, and he got that down to like 3 hours or something through some sort of efficiency that he's been so Kevin's just a brilliant guy, and he's been such a big part of this amp, and I can't thank him enough for really helping so much with it. So long story short, it's all happening basically pretty much on schedule, and should be within, I believe, shipping now, and then everybody will hold on to them until that date where Sir says, okay, put them out on the floor. When are we going to get Sir dealers in Ireland? That's a great question. Bring it up with John in one of these chats, and he was going to bring it up with a rep. Good question. I'll ask Nigel about that. What about Ireland? He's the Sir man on the in Europe, and it'd be a great question for him. So I'll try and remember that. I'm just paging back a little bit here through the chat. Look for some more questions. Let's see. Pete, love the mini video about germanium fuzz cleanup. I'm wondering if noiseless Strat pickups would interact differently than standard vintage Strat pickups. I don't think so. No, only if you've got active pickups. At that point, you're going to lose that ability. The reason is, and I'm not a guitar tech or an engineer, but what happens is that it's really the connection of the guitar electronics and pickups and stuff with the fuzz circuit itself, and it's an impedance thing, and it's got something to do with I believe it's like I can't remember exactly if it's like super low impedance input on a fuzz face or super high impedance. I can't remember, but it's one of the two, and it's because of that, when you roll the volume down on your guitar, essentially what's happening is it's doing a similar thing to, as I understand it, like a bright cap on a Marshall. But you're varying the impedance essentially when you roll your volume up and down on your guitar. When you roll it down, things brighten up and it cleans up very quickly. And it's got something to do with the impedance. And somebody sort of corrected me the other day. They said it's not strictly a germanium thing. It'll actually do it on some silicon style fuzz faces as well. They do say that I've been able to sort of figure out that it's a little bit more prominent for whatever reason on the germanium pedal, but people have been saying it's more a component and a result of that circuit of the fuzz face style fuzz than it is just the fact that it's a germanium one or a silicone one. They say most fuzz faces will do that in general when you roll the volume down on the guitar. So anyway, Michael Thompson has been talking about this for years, but he's of the opinion that Hendrix had the fuzz face on a lot, and that he got a lot of his clean sounds and a lot of his dynamics and kind of that explosive dynamic range he had by just working the volume control on the guitar with the fuzz on. And it is an amazing thing, you know, when you roll the volume down, you just get this glassy, amazing, sparkly, clean thing that sounds like Hyperstrat. And it's something that I made the video because I was making a video about that fuzz pedal, which I put out a couple days ago, a demo of the fuzz. And I thought, for whatever reason, fuzz videos, like demos of fuzzes, they get the least views, I find, out of any kind of pedal demo. You know, distortions and drives that people are really interested in, they get the most. Then maybe delays. Fuzzes, not so much. They'll kind of get 7,000-8,000 views, and then they'll kind of stall out on my channel. And it's not a pedal that tons of people are interested in for whatever reason. Fuzz pedals, they're just, you know. So I thought, if I put this out and I talk about the cleanup in the middle of this video, which I do, it was a part of the middle of the video, I thought not that many people are going to get to see this, but I feel like this is a really important thing that a lot of people might not be hip to. Older guitar players know that, you know, they're accustomed to fuzz faces and using them, but not a lot of younger guitar players maybe know that. So I thought I'll just make a video about this and put a kind of clickbaity title on it, and maybe some people will find it interesting. So that's why I did that. And sure enough, I got a lot of views. I mean, it was 30,000 views within 24 hours or something like that. And people found it interesting. And I'm happy about that because it is a cool thing. I think a lot of people spend money switching pickups and pots on their guitars and stuff like that. And they don't realize that maybe that sound that they're looking for, I think it was everything pre-Axis, that Hendrix did, or, certainly Are You Experienced stuff was all germanium fuzzes. Anyway, Metalhead Hippie is in the top chat. He says, is it normal for a guitar to lose sustain when using reverbs and delays, or note longevity? That's a great question. Thanks for doing the top chat, Metalhead Hippie. I do appreciate that, always. Scott Henderson is a believer of doing a wet dry rig for that very reason. He thinks that if you put stuff like in the effects loop of an amp and you have like delay and reverb and stuff in the same speaker that your direct guitar signal is in, he thinks it messes with the note a little bit, and then messes with things like sustain, I think, and the direct kind of core interaction with your guitar. Maybe it's a function too of like, if you're doing it in series, and if you're not mixing effects in parallel, there's a little bit of a A to D conversion thing that goes on, a little bit of latency. Then that combined with blending delay in with some reverb in the same speakers that the dry signal is in, he thinks that it affects the core tone in a way that he doesn't like. So he's got that really interesting kind of almost lo-fi yet super cool organic wet dry rig where he runs his head into his cabinet, but he's got a line out box in between, a tap off the speaker send coming out of his amplifier going to the dry cabinet. And he takes that and he plugs that into a Roland effects unit, I think it is, Boss effects unit. And then he runs the output of that into a little Fender combo amp that sits beside. And then he just turns up the volume on the combo amp. So it's literally like the effects are running right into the front end of that little combo. And then he's got the full EQ on the Fender amp to EQ the reverb and delay. It's set 100% wet, I believe. And he's still got that dry, bone dry signal going into that 412 cabinet with his main, he uses a SH100 signature Sur amp that he's got. So there's something to that. He's an amazing guitar player. I think Landau does the same thing. He's only got effects in one amp, I think. So these great guitar players, that they would probably tend to agree with you that it'll affect sustain and things like that if you've got effects in your, I do it. I mean, it's what I do. I run them all in the same speakers, but I'm almost scared, to set up another wet dry rig because be like, oh no, I need to do this, and then I have to revisit everything. There's only so much time. Have you ever played a Brian Moore custom from the 90s or early 2000s? That's an interesting question. I actually have. I remember those guitars. They were kind of cool. They weren't around that long, but they seemed like they had a little bit of popularity for a while, kind of like the Parker Fly, around for a little bit, and then you didn't hear about them after, for 5 years or something. I saw those Brian Moore guitars. I recommend Fred at Repair Zone for refret. He did some fret work on my Custom Shop SG, and I'm very satisfied. That's Jason Carter. There's a little recommendation for fret work there. So you want to be a pro musician? Done, says Teamit73. You know what? No. I know I was laying off for a little bit there, but it was really just because I was traveling so much and stuff. I made a new one with Paul Davids. And it's all about Paul's career, and kind of I mentioned it right at the beginning of the chat today for those that just joined. We got 430 people online. Thanks for being here, you guys. It's awesome. But yeah, new one with Paul Davids coming out soon. For those that don't know Paul, he's got a great big YouTube channel. He's a great guitar player. He's an educator. And I find his story interesting because he's definitely a professional musician that, YouTube's his main thing. And he's a great, like I say, educator and communicator. He loves playing in bands and stuff too, but he really found his thing with his sort of, he's got a great way of explaining things, and his videos are just really watchable and entertaining, I find. So I wanted to kind of quiz him about what he's done, because here's a guy from, Rotterdam that's now, he's kind of well known all over the world for his great channel. I think he's got 1.2 million subscribers, something like that. Pretty big guitar channel. Substantially bigger than mine, about 10 times, which is just, he's grown it into a wonderful thing. So I wanted to know all about that. So I interviewed him for So You Want to Be a Pro Musician, because he's certainly a pro musician. So that'll be coming out next week. I'll put that out for sure. Odin Sten says, thank you, Pete. You are such a gracious host. Thanks, man. I wouldn't miss it. I really enjoy this. I always like being here. So Paul just broke 1,000,000 subs, says Double D Guitar. Great channel. It really is a great channel. I love going to those YouTube things and meeting all these guys because he turned out to be a great guy. I feel like I'm pals with him now. He's very nice. I saw him on the train actually. He'd just come from Rotterdam to Amsterdam and was changing planes to go to Nuremberg. And I saw him on a bus at the airport as we were getting shuttled to the flight to Nuremberg. And I was like, Paul Davids, what's up? Like, I've been waiting to meet you. And he was like, oh my God, I know you from, and, we rode down. He's a great guy. Between him and, Adam and Mary and the That Pedal Show guys and all these terrific people that I got to hang out with that week at Tome. It was really fun. It's a really fun thing to get together with these people that are, it's a lot of really high functioning people, I feel like, and I feel like lucky to be involved in that crowd and be able to hang out with them because they're forward thinkers, they're musicians, they're doing well in the music business, whatever that means anymore. There's a lot of grumblers in the music business. There's a lot of like, can't get a gig and it's not like it used to be. And everybody steals music now. And it's like a lot of that going on. And then, so it's great to get together with a bunch of people that have kind of figured out a way and a path to play music. And, whether it's through making videos or whatever, a lot of these people like, Adams is like constantly gigging and doing stuff, New York City. He's a busy musician and YouTube's almost like, I guess he probably considers it his main thing, but I mean, it is kind of like a side gig compared to, he's always playing and stuff too. And, doing clinics and doing master classes and playing out. It's a fascinating dude, that guy. What a brain. Adam Neely, really interesting cat, that guy. Really cool. I like also that he makes videos that he's a bass player, but any musician can watch them, kind of like Rick Beato. It's like, you could be a drummer, a keyboard player, or singer, or just probably just a music fan and enjoy their videos. So I find that really interesting. Will there be a review for the Marshall Studio Vintage by you, or is it already oversaturated? It's not that. It's just that with amps, I don't really make amp videos other than the amps in the zone as kind of classic amps. But because I have a signature Shure amp, I don't really do amp videos. That's really the reason. I've got an amplifier, and I'm kind of, so I stick to pedal videos and other sort of tonal videos essentially. But when it comes to like the new amp from PRS or something, I've sort of shied away from doing them for that reason. That said, I am going to make some Synergy videos, and the reason is because I find their product, like the Syn 1, Syn 2, how I can add channels to my existing amp. I find that really interesting. They approached me and said they wanted me to make videos, using their power amp and stuff. I said, I can't really do that because it's an entire amplification thing that sort of competes with something that I'm involved in. But I said, your preamp, that's a way. And I see it as actually even more of a unique product in a way. They've got a product that, much like the Kraken, from Victory, that preamp pedal I did a video of, you can add that to your amplifier and you're essentially adding channels to your existing amp. I find that almost infinitely more fascinating than just another amp or a preamp and a power amp, because now if you've got a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe or something, anything with an effects loop, you can now add a Soldano SLO front end to that, which is pretty cool. And I think really usable for a lot of musicians out there. So I'm going to do those. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. I'll take the Syn 1 or Syn 2, and hook them up with my, PT15 and make some videos so that I can add a, a Vox channel or SLO channel, and they get an alternate high gain sound or something with my amp. And I think those are going to be fun videos to make. Are you planning on incorporating your PT15 in your live rig, or do you plan on using it as a studio tool? That's from Ben. I want to see, like when I use my PT100s live with Yoshi in Japan, I've got the masters they're cranking, but it's like I'm dialing back the master, it's not that loud. I've got two of them up there running with two 212 cabinets. But, we're on in-ears, and I can always get a little more in my ears and stuff. So it leads me to believe, like, could I get away with, and would it almost be beneficial because I can crank the amp a little bit more into the zone, so to speak, and maybe get a little bit of power amp drive more than I'm able to get with the PT100s. Could I use two PT15s, and would it be enough power and work out well for me on my current touring gig? I'm not sure. I think maybe. That said, I have two amplifiers in Japan, so they're there. I've got two amps, two 212s, and I've got a rig over there. All I need to do is get a pedal board over there and some guitars, and I'm good to go. So shipping more amps is kind of, that becomes a financial concern and stuff, and just kind of maybe doesn't make sense. So there's that. Certainly for stuff I'm doing in LA, or, you know, if something else comes up where I need an amp locally, I'm going to try and use the 15, you know, for sure. Yeah. Pete, how you only have 162K subs is beyond me. You have one of the best channels on here. That's Mark Pritchard. Thanks, man. You're very influential and have the best content. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to grow it. It's slow but surely, you know, slowly but surely it grows. And if anybody wants to share, I appreciate it. You know, hit the share on this video, and hit the thumbs up and stuff if you like it. It really, all that stuff helps out. It's a slow growth kind of channel, and it has been for years, but it's slow and steady, and I'm happy with that. I don't even mind, you know. It's part of the reason why my channel is what it is as compared to, you know, somebody like Adam, like I say, or Rick Beato, is that they had a lot of vision when they made their channel. What Makes This Song Great by Rick Beato. Anybody can watch those videos. It's a universally sort of interesting topic. A video on a fuzz pedal is a more guitar-centric, guitar geek topic. You're probably not going to get a vocalist to watch that video, or right? So if anybody's out there and they want to start a YouTube channel, think about that, you know, about if you want to make your kind of focused target audience and keep it small thing, that's okay. But if you're trying to reach the most people, you want to take that into account and come up with a concept that I would just say very simply that, like, think about it. Like, would a bass player want to watch this video? Would a vocalist want to watch this video? How can I reach the most people? And that helps, you know, for sure, for sure. The editing on Paul's videos is great. That's Paul Davids. Yeah. And then you add in the quality of the video audio and the content. Winner. Yeah. That's Odin Stan saying about Paul Davids. Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I got a little spammer down there, and so I'm hiding them. Damn bots these days. Adam, you were in the top chat and I miss you. Thanks for doing the top chat. That's Adam Stewart. He's in the United States. He says, have you or anyone you know been contacted to demo the prescription electronics pedals? Is the brand really back, or is it a scam? I don't know that. That's a great question. They were really one of the first out there, weren't they? Prescription electronics. I've had an experienced fuzz pedal since maybe 1992, I want to say. One of the great fuzz pedals of all time, I think. Talk about a germanium pedal that does that magic roll down thing. It's super cool. I don't even know where mine is, but it's here somewhere. I have two, actually, because I got one years later to put on another pedal board. That was kind of my first, actually. The prescription pedal was my first. I didn't really know that you can't really put a buffer in front of them or it'll screw up the sound. And I put it on my pedal board and I used a wireless in front of it. I was like, I don't like this pedal on this pedal board. It doesn't sound very good. And I was like, this isn't the way that I remember it sounding. And yet Yogi used one, the other guitar player in Chris Cornell's band, and his sound was great. So I learned that, okay, that pedal doesn't work well with a buffer in front of it. The germanium thing, it's finicky, and the magic goes away as soon as you put a buffer in front of a pedal that has that impedance fuzz face thing going on. Simon's in the top chat. He says, oh, yeah, I wanted to mention that. He says, congrats on becoming a U.S. citizen from a fellow dual citizen. A beer on me to celebrate. Thank you, good sir. I appreciate that. I am a dual citizen now. I became a U.S. citizen this week. And it was a great event. It was a really great event. I really enjoyed being there with all those folks. There was 2,500 people there, all becoming new U.S. citizens, and something like 130 countries represented. You know, folks from all over the world, and it was a long road. And you know, it's also weird to just go to a place and be able to get a certificate, and now you're a citizen. That's an interesting thing. Even though it took 30 years or so to get to that place, it's a strange concept, but it was really a great event. And the judge was fantastic. That does, because it's like a legal, basically it becomes a court of law in that context. And there's a judge that does the swearing in and stuff. And guy from Citizenship and Immigration Services stands up there and says, "We move to make a motion that these people can all be U.S. citizens now." And then the judge says, "I grant your motion," or whatever, and then you're all citizens, something along those lines. But it's a happy sort of relief, joyous occasion, and it is a really cool thing. Go to one if you know somebody that's becoming a citizen, and if you can go there and be a guest and watch it, and it is really interesting. If you have the chance, so it feels good. I don't have to ever worry about it ever again. I liked it. Anyways, asking about Q2N again. That's this little camera I've got here, and my opinion. Also, someone else have used for a while and enjoy it and have learned the quirks. Great for live use at gigs. Can use the stereo mic or get a feed. Yeah. So this is a little. I showed this at the beginning. I got one of these recently. A little Zoom Q2N. I'm going to try using this as a webcam maybe next week. I figured out a way to do it. If anybody gets one of these, they come with a micro USB cable that you would then plug into your computer, and you can use it as a webcam. The cable they provide doesn't work. That's what I've learned this week. It's not fast enough, at least not with my computer, to provide a consistent video stream. It'll shut off and, freeze up. So I went on Amazon and I bought for $7.95 a high-speed micro USB cable like this. And I set the delay buffer in the webcam settings up a ways so that there's somewhat of a buffer between the camera and the computer, I think. And that solved the problems. I managed to do. I did a test live stream with this earlier in the week, one night about 4 or 5 days ago, and it worked great. And it does look good, better than what I've got going here, I think. So I am going to try it maybe next week. And so beyond that, using it for webcam streaming, this is a great way to record, video and audio. If you make YouTube videos or do things for Instagram or whatever, it is a really, really good sounding. Zoom's always had the audio together, but their video is always a little shoddy, I found. Not up to, even like an iPhone sort of level of video. This looks great though. This new Zoom Q2N 4K is the one that you want. Very happy with it. Did some neat things with it, both at Toman and here. I used it by the way, I used this in the Fuzz video. So I normally have a quite expensive Sony mirrorless A6000 jobby, and this was replacing the Sony. So this is what you were seeing, and I think it looked pretty good in that Fuzz video that I put up. Chris Cam is in the top chat. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. And he says, just picked up a PT Sig with the Wilkinson trim. Amazing guitar all around, but these Thornbucker pickups are the best. That's awesome, man. Thank you. Thanks for all the knowledge and time you share with us. I think you sent me pictures, right? I saw the photos, and you said you're broke but happy. Thanks for getting it, dude. Your guitar looks beautiful, and yeah, the guitars are. I'm spoiled by it because I'm so used to it now, and it plays so good and it stays in tune, and you don't have to worry about it. And there's a million sounds on the switch and stuff, and it just is a great tool. It's hard for me to go to other guitars after playing my guitar. So I love my guitar. I do. Brett says and thanks for doing the top chat once again, man, Chris. Even after you're broke, you still did it. You didn't have to do that. You've supported the cause enough, but you're a good man. Brett says I ordered a Jackson guitar with jumbo frets and couldn't see playing as a guitar for everything, so I had my friend put stainless steel lower frets in it, and it is perfect for all-around guitar. That's interesting. So you had it refretted. I got used to jumbos in the 80s, and I moved away from them at some point, tried different kinds of frets and stuff. And then I realized at one point, it's like, why did I ever move away? Like, I just loved 6100 size frets. I can play on 6105s or those 6150s or whatever they're called. The wide but lower 6105s are kind of tall, but a little more narrow. 6100s, though, I love them. I just love them. They're great. Now, you could do what Jake E. Lee does and have 6100s up to like the 15th fret, and then 6105s beyond that. And then his main guitar, it's Gibson scale, 24 3/4. So he's got, although it looks like a Charvel Strat or whatever, it's actually a short scale guitar. And he uses, I've played that guitar actually. his main one that he uses now. I played it recently, and like his actual guitar I got to play, and he's got the smaller frets on the top frets, and then there's a lot of things about his guitar that kind of makes sense. It's interesting. These guys, back in the day, they had to figure things out. Kind of Eddie Van Halen, Jake E. Lee, people back, they were doing modified guitars, and they would do things that made a lot of sense. He used SDS-1 single coils because he liked the JB or hot pickup in the bridge. Well, the SDS-1, it turns out, and I noticed this when I played his guitar, it does balance perfectly as far as a single coil size. Might not sound exactly like a traditional single coil, but it balances with that humbucker perfectly. So that, they were smart guys, and then the fret thing, he likes a shorter scale guitar. Frets are a little closer together. 6100s can get a little, maybe not so much real estate up there for all that fret wire. So the smaller frets up top, pretty neat. It does work. It does work. It's one of the cool things about guitar players back then is they did. Now people kind of experiment with pedals and pedal boards. Back then it was like less pedals, just a few pedals. Your unique amp, whatever you plugged into, and a lot of like guitar variation. I find, there was neat things that people did on their guitars to get different feels and sounds and things. When we think about Eddie or Jake or these different players, they have some unique things. So blah 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 blah. Danny Jones says, never heard of Paul David. Check him out. Check out his channel. It's a great channel, great resource. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move all the way to the end of the chat in just a second here. Yeah, Metalhead Hippie says he has a note cutoff sometimes when he uses reverb and delay at the same time. Yeah, it could just be buggering up kind of the direct connection between your guitar pickups and the cabinet, and adding that mush in there. A little bit of sonic mush might be disturbing it, so you lose feedback or whatever. Excuse me, gotta keep hiccuping. It's a good question. My Les Paul Studio G string on the lowest A note goes sharp. What's wrong with this thing? Common problem on Les Pauls and Gibson style guitars. I think 24 3/4 scale guitars can be the nut. The height of the nut can be an issue. You want to take the guitar to a good tech and have a new nut made, probably that fans just a little bit out so that you get less tuning issues, and also just the position of the nut where it is. I had a lot of problems with my 335. Let me show you something. Real quick. My 335, which folks know well and watch my channel, I would think, has had a couple headstock repairs. So you won't be able to see it on here, but you almost can, actually. You can almost see it's got maple inlaid, kind of like spines or something that were inlaid into the back to strengthen the headstock. And when I got it back from repair, it never really tuned well, this guitar. I couldn't really get it perfectly in tune. It always seemed a little funny. And it still didn't when I got it back. And it was True Tone Music in Santa Monica that did the work on the headstock. Now, the nut, I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but you can almost see it on the edge there where the binding is. I took the guitar to Norik Renson and I said, I had this guitar, the headstock repaired, but I think you can see it here on the side. I said, it's just not tuning still. Is there anything you can do? And he looked at the nut, and what he did was he built a little lip out on the end of the nut. He said, I think it's just the nut isn't quite in the right position and it needs to be a little bit more forward in order for it to tune right. So it's a really difficult thing for me to try and show you here, but let's see if I can angle it like this. If you look, there's a I think he used graphite right at the front of the nut and just built it out a little bit more so that the nut actually, you know what I'm saying? Like where the string makes contact is just moved forward a slight bit. Now, if you look at those nuts, like from those companies that have those Irvana, right? Irvana compensated nuts. That's what they do, and they do it a little more on the G string and a little more on the B. It's mainly the G and the B, and that's the problem that you're having, I think. You know, if you shorten the space between the nut and the first fret and where you put your finger down, what's going to end up happening is when you fret this note, if that gets shorter, if you fret this note, this is going to be a little more flat. So if you're finding that the open note is in tune, but this note and this note seem sharp, the problem can be that the nut is too high, and it can also be that the nut is too far back. Okay, so that might be something that you could address. Maybe you want to try an Irvana nut on your Les Paul. I think they're called Irvana, as I remember. This was also something that the Buzz Featon tuning thing aimed to kind of correct. But just compensating the nut a little bit like that on that guitar, now it tunes better than it ever did, even before the headstock break. I can get that guitar perfectly in tune. It sounds great. He totally fixed it. But I find this a lot on Gibsons, and it's also a thing that on a Gibson, I find that the best way to tune it is so I'll do it on this guitar, on just about any short scale guitar. On the second string, tune to that, like do the open note and then do the D on the third fret. And many times on many Les Pauls, this will be sharp. If the open note's in tune, the D on the third fret will be sharp. Same thing with the A note, okay, on the second fret of the third string. It'll just read a little sharp compared to the open note. So you can also just kind of futz with the tuning a little bit and tune your B string ever so slightly flat when it's open. And I find that solves a shit ton of problems when it comes to tuning on Les Pauls. I'll use stuff in the nut like the Big Ben's nut sauce or the Diodario stuff. To keep the nut nice and slippery. I'll get nuts cut again, and then I'll also tune the B and maybe the G just ever so slightly flat, and the low E string too, because it tends to move more. So when you hit it hard, it goes sharp on a short scale guitar. These are little tuning tricks I do, so I tend to hold this note down and tune to that D on the tuner. And if you do, try it on your Gibsons. If you do it and then you play the open note, you might notice the open note's a hair flat. But you're playing with your hands on the neck most of the time, and it just makes a Les Paul sound more in tune, generally speaking, I find. Okay, so that's a couple little tricks. For sure on Gibsons, I do that stuff a lot. Rob is in the top chat. Thanks, Rob. You're too kind. How much space do you recommend for a music room or office? I have a few combo amps, guitars, an aux, and a desk. I'd like to use a 10 by 12 space. That should be more than enough. I also have a 20 by 24 space. Well, more is always better. Can you jam with another guitarist in your room? Sure. Yeah, I can put 2 or 3 people in here pretty comfortably, I don't know how big this room is exactly. It's bigger than that. It's not 10 by 12. It's I think it's 11. It's a weird shape because it's not a normal construction. And it might be 17 or 18 long by 11 wide, something like that, I think. Something like that. So you're saying 10 by 12. That should be more than enough for, a few combo amps, guitars, and aux. That should be fine, I would think. You're going to want to treat the room a little bit too with some, you can see I've got my panels up and all that stuff. You're going to want to do that. You can get some stuff from ATS Acoustics to do that. That's always my recommendation for go to atsacoustics.com and you'll see they sell nice kind of pre-made panels that are, some of them are 4 inches thick, some of them are 2 inches thick, but with that good 703 style sound absorption stuff. You can get them in different colors. You can get them in different shapes. You can get them even with custom printing done on them if you want pictures put on them and stuff. They're really cool that way. But, you can deaden your room down a little bit and tune the room in. Bigger is always better. I mean, if you can use the 20 by 24 room, why not go for it and make a really fun big space that you could even maybe put a little drum kit in or something like that in one corner and have a jam room. But I think 10 by 12. My original room my studio that I first sort of built out in Santa Monica was probably about that size. And I did a lot of good work in there. We like the live chat, says SD Design. Thanks. I'm glad you're here. Oh, and by the way, thanks again for Rob for doing the top chat there. I appreciate that. I do appreciate it. Good sir. Okay. I'm going to move down to the end of the chat. I'm just going to look and there's a little bit of, oh no, I don't have to moderate because it's held for review. Good. Good. Click now. Click here. Watch here is invisible. I like that. That's the name of the troll that keeps posting in here. Zero frets rule. That's Paul. Yeah, zero fret can be a solution to that. Some of those tuning issues, if it's done right, that's for sure. I always saw it as another friction point, and so I don't know how that affects tuning. You know, like I'd almost rather just have the nut that's done right than a zero fret. I wonder how Sir feels about that. Would a string butler help him, says Odin Stan? You know, I have one of those things and I haven't installed it yet. A string butler is a thing you can put on a Gibson guitar that'll help the strings kind of fan out from the nut. It's got these little roller things, and it's like a replacement truss rod cover for a Gibson. If anybody wants to look at string butler, stringbutler.com. I don't know, do they have the website, but you could just Google search it and you might find some good info on it. Tim Pierce likes it. I know that. Seems to help. My feel is that might not be necessary if you have the nut cut right. Like I had a nut on, where's my black Les Paul? This guitar, my old black custom, which had a headstock break, and then, you know, had to get a new nut and all that stuff. After the headstock break on this one, the nut was, you can see I think you can even see in the reflection there, the big, see that right there? That's where the big crack went right through the headstock. So this was glued and repaired, but the nut was never right on it after that. And I used it for years like that with the nut redone, and it was always a pain in the ass to tune. I couldn't get it right. And then I took it to a guy in Japan, and in typically, you know, Japanese fashion, the workmanship was incredible. And I got the nut back, and it just, you know, got the guitar back, and now it's amazing. It's like he cut it just perfect, and it's a real bone nut. With the strings fanned out a bit. It tunes great, and it stays in tune great now. So he sort of saved my old Les Paul custom. It was Crews, CREWS in Tokyo, in Shibuya. Great tech there. Look at that guitar. Look at that. Ooh, that's what we like. The dish on a Les Paul. There it is. That's the magic. Oh, yeah. Okay. Moving down. Saw you this week in the Chicago airport. Oh, man, I was booking it through there. Mr. J says, couldn't stop to say hi because I was in a hurry. I was too, man. I was moving. Was the sushi good? You know what? So I stopped at that sushi place, and then I had 15 minutes, and I said to the waiter when he showed up, like, is this realistic? Like, am I going to be able to, because I got to go and like pretty much like should be settling up and leaving in 10 minutes. He said, there's no way you're not going to get your food before then. So I got up and left. So you saw me in the sushi place probably 10 seconds before I got up and had to move on. I ended up buying a gluten-free sandwich at the shop, and I got on the plane and ate it instead. Oh, man. Flight connections. Chicago. That place is crazy. What a crazy airport. Hey, Pete, enjoying the chat, says Tim. Curious about what happened with the locking bridge on your signature model. You shared a prototype in Japan a while back. That's the bridge you get on my guitar now. Like Chris Cam just got one. He's here in the chat somewhere. Ask Chris if he likes it. Chris, tell us about your locking bridge on your new PT. In other words, the guitars, every one that they're making now is all shipping with the new Wilkinson bridge on it. And I do love it. Let's see. I have mispronounced Buzz's name for years, strictly because I like the sound of Buzz fighting. I think it's Feetin', right? That's double D. So let's see. Looking for more. Huge Zero Fret fan, says JR. I guess there's one on the Brian May guitar I have here, and that guitar seems to stay in tune with the vibrato pretty good. So that tuning thing is a universal problem that's intrinsic to the design of the guitar. Maybe the shorter scale of a Gibson is more sensitive. I think so. I think Gibsons are harder to tune for sure than Fenders for a couple different reasons. The slightly slacker string tension thing, you know, the guitar just, they're a little more squirrely when it comes to tuning, I find. Yeah, definitely. Music Man has compensated nuts. Is that right? I didn't know that. That's from Rodney. Do they do like so the nut slots are compensated in kind of the Buzz Feetin' situation? That's interesting. Keep moving down. Let's see. Listening while installing the flooring in my studio today, says Haley. That's exciting. New floor in the studio. maybe brand new studio in general. That's always exciting. Congratulations. Yeah, I use Big Ben's too, says Chris. That's the nut lubricant stuff. That stuff is great. Works really well. It's very helpful to keep a guitar in tune. Big Ben's nut sauce. I'm a big fan of that stuff. Helps keep guitars in tune. Okay. How funny Gibson headstock break like that isn't common or anything. Yeah. You know, they all just, if it goes over, if you breathe on them funny, they can break. It's true. Stealth Parrot says, I have a tech who makes a compensated nut, which alleviates the open chord tuning issues. You can check it out at, this is good. Michael McConville Guitars, McConville, Michael McConville Guitars. Check that out. Maybe I'd like to check that out. Get one of his compensated nuts give it a try, because I'm always trying to be more in tune. Chris says a few degrees back bend and it helps. 12-inch instead of 14-inch. Like you're saying, less pressure on the headstock. Isn't the headstock more like 4 degrees or 3 degrees or something though? I think. Yeah. Let's see. With a board wired for stereo, says Miguel, what would you do for using it in mono in a pinch? Unplug the stereo half on the pedals? Yes, that's exactly what I do on mine. No switch or anything, just the pedals and patch bay with the ins outs. Yeah, just unhook the stereo cables, so that you're only running through. It's usually the left input is the mono one. Unhook the stereo ones. That's exactly how I do it on my board. Just takes a second. And then you'll be running in mono. Pete, what's the difference between a Klon and a tube screamer? I don't know technically on the inside, but in sound, to me, a Klon sounds more like an organic bonded part of the amplifier, if that makes sense. It sounds more like part of the tone. It does a mid thickening thing, and so does a tube screamer, but Klons just always sound more like it's the amp, and like there's not a pedal as part of the component. Now a tube screamer can be a really cool thing. It's kind of to me it sounds like it lops off more lows, like Klons sound fuller in the lows. Tube screamer sounds like they lop off more bass, and there's always this sort of slight layered clean on top of dirty thing, which if you play real clean and then turn on the tube screamer, it can be a weird sound. But if you crank the amp up, and actually one of my biggest, I think it's my biggest video, is how to and how not to use overdrives. And it's got about like 1.2 million views now or something like that. And that video, I go over how to use a tube screamer with a Strat and an old Bassman. And I think the magic lies in cranking the amp up to the point where the amp's distorting just a little bit, just getting a bit of grind going, and then you turn on the tube screamer and you don't use too much of the drive. You use mainly the output cranked. Turn the tone control down below half, have the drive almost off, maybe up just a little bit to taste, like anywhere between off and 9 o'clock. And that's where a tube screamer can sound actually really, really great. It does its own thing. You wouldn't set a Klon like that with the output. That'd be way too hot, I would think, on the output of a Klon. Generally, if I run my Klon volume on like 4, and then I run the drive down kind of like on 3, and then the treble somewhere just a little below half, that's plenty of, it's boosting and it's adding a little bit of its own drive. I like the drive in the Klon circuit quite a bit, actually. I mean, some people don't like it. I always think it actually sounds pretty natural. It was the Sunrise from BJ Press. If you watch that video, pretty magic sounding pedal, that one, like especially with the Telly and the AC30, it just, a little bit of drive from that BJ Press Klon type pedal sound really amazing, I thought. There's just, I don't know, it just sounds really familiar to me. It's a sound I bond with, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good tone. What year is your Telly with the Rosewood board? 1966. That's from Ben. Chris Schultz says, yeah, I missed a flight in Chicago, but it worked out as it gave me a day to visit friends in the area. That's always cool. If you're like, oh, too bad, I missed the flight, and you're like, great, now I can go and hang out for a day. It can be a fun thing, It's a great thing about flying with a carry-on only is then it's like, I don't care. Put me on whatever the next flight is, and I'll go into the city and hang out and have some fun. It's all about being adaptable, isn't it? Thanks for the info on the new bridge on the Sir PT. I was going to ask if they are now in stock. That's Mr. Dave Miley. Yeah, they are. That's true. If you order one now, it'll come with that bridge on the guitar. Hey, Pete, any thought on Gibson video play authentic? We were talking about that a little while ago. I was saying, like, in my opinion, I think Gibson needs to protect their trademarks, and patents and trademarks should be protected to a point. But, if I think going by the PRS ruling, if you change the lower cutaway enough, and if the headstock's not the same, and it's clearly not a Les Paul, like, don't go after those companies. Like, don't spend your money elsewhere. Just compete by making a better guitar. I think it's a losing battle. Yeah, by all means, if somebody makes a guitar that says Les Paul on it, and they're doing it in consistent, numbers, where it's an out and out sort of forgery situation, they're trying to pass it off. And even with my, I've got a Gillian, right? And it's like sitting right back there. You can see it in the stand. That guitar does not say Gibson on it, and the headstock is different. So there ain't nobody going to mistake that guitar for a Gibson that's looking to buy one. If within 5 minutes of looking at it, even if they were fooled for that long, he won't do it. It's like he doesn't want to. So at that point, it's like, okay, well, it's an influenced by guitar, right? And I think that ship has sailed. I don't know. Yeah. Long story short, just make better guitars, and that's how to win. I feel like Gibson's been generally doing a great job. Like I say, I love those SGs that I see that are like candy blue and candy red with the, two P90s. Those guitars. I mean, all the pictures they've been putting up on Instagram and stuff consistently of new models and stuff. It's like, that's a good looking guitar. That's nice guitars. I have noticed, like at NAMM this year, I went and played a bunch of the new kind of historic, 59 Les Pauls, 60 Les Pauls, and they were 60th anniversary guitars. Very heavy, all of them, I thought, which is, I know it's hard. It's not even a slight on Gibson. It's difficult these days to find mahogany that's not heavy. It's just tough. And in the kind of numbers they make guitars in, it can be probably pretty difficult to, make guitars that are sub 9 pounds anymore. It's just not the Woodstocks out there. So that's tough. But I did find them to be a little, like that said, kind of, I might hold out for, that style of guitar, maybe made by a custom maker or something like that, that has a little bit more access to even just a small quantity of lighter mahogany. I just feel like I wouldn't want to. That said, I mean, this thing is. This is a 10-pound guitar for sure, and it's got a great sound. This guitar there is something to the weight. Yeah, this guitar has a big, deep, heavy sound to it that I really like. It's a great rock and roll guitar. Okay. You can go bananas on this trim, and it comes right back to pitch, says Chris. He just got one of my signature guitars, and he's digging the trim. Cool. My palm doesn't notice the difference from a Godot 510. That's the thing. That's why I was sold on it, because it feels like a regular 2-post Godot style, but it stays in tune, 30% better, I think. The problems with the G string, the E string is gone, and it just, yeah. And it doesn't take that long to change strings. It's a little bit more of a pain to change strings, and that's it. And the benefits are just, it feels the same, sound great, and just the tuning stability is killing. It's just awesome. Malcolm Young's signature has a 0 fret. Yeah, on a guitar like that, like a fixed bridge thing, I wouldn't worry about it at all. A 0 fret on a Les Paul, or it should be fine. But on anything with a tremolo, that's the only time that 0 fret. I don't know. Might be an issue. Yeah. There's a guy here's a chat that didn't get shown because there was a link. Sometimes when you post links, guys, they won't show up in the chat. I have to approve it. But Paul just posted a link to somebody that does compensated nuts, and I just approved his thing so you can see it. Yeah, it says, what's it say? Guitarnut.com? Or no, guitarnutcompensation.com. Really? Wow, fascinating. So people are really going after this thing, trying to make a better mousetrap. That's cool. The neck angle on a Les Paul is 4 degrees. The headstock angle is 14 degrees. Thank you. See, I'm a moron when it comes to some of this stuff. So the headstock course is tilted back more than the neck angle. Good to know. Yeah. And Mark says they might be prone to break and tuning issues, and Gibson might have misstepped recently, but those guitars are just cool. What can you say? I agree. That's the dilemma. They are just cool, you know. Great to have a Gibson guitar. There's nothing. I'm holding one right now that I've used to great effect for many, many years. I always enjoyed playing this guitar. This is just a standard run of the mill. It's not a custom shop guitar. This came out in actually when I got this guitar, it's a 2000, I think. It's almost vintage at this point, isn't it? It's like 20 years old. Did all that wear myself too. Look at that. It's a real belt buckle rash. But when I got this guitar, it had gold hardware. You know, when they did these ones with the white binding and the gold hardware, and it just was like, yeah, that's a little weird looking. And they said, well, we can put chrome on it for you. And so I got them to replace the hardware with chrome, and it's got no, I don't know where the pickguard ended up for this guitar. I don't have it anymore. And then it was just badass. Just looks cool with the chrome. This, and even with open coil pickups, pretty cool. We got 439 people online. Thanks for being here on a Sunday, folks. I really appreciate it. Charles says, I just installed JJ6CA7 in an amp, and they sound great. Yeah, I've wondered about those. I've got 6CA7s in that Marshall there, the EH ones, and I think it sounds great. More maybe the preamp tubes, because I did a swap at the same time, put some new old stock preamp tubes in it. And the one in V2, oof, man, that really, that amp just transformed all of a sudden. Now I can get great clean sounds out of it too. Like it does this kind of magic when I blend. Right now I've got the channels jumpered, and the one volume on 4 and the other one on 3 and stuff, and I can hit it with pedals, and it just sounds great. Friedman tweaked the bright cap on it as well. We were talking a little bit about bright caps earlier. He put in a nice value now, so it gets a little more aggressive, than it would with no cap, but not crazy. Can you talk about wireless? Would you use wireless in the studio? Probably not, but I wouldn't be opposed to it if I had to for a certain reason. If there was I need to be way far away, and I don't know if there was a reason. I'm a pretty big fan these days of, for instance, the Shure wireless systems that I use over in Japan seem to work great. Sennheiser makes good wireless. I used AKG for a long time, but they're kind of outdated now, the model that I have, and I don't think they work very well overseas with new sort of cell phone frequencies and all that stuff. So I've been using these Shures, and the Shure ULXD, I think it's called. That's the model they rent for me when I go over there, and it works well. It does add a bit of noise, a little bit of hiss to the signal, but it's not bad. It's acceptable. But in the studio, I don't think so. Okay, I'm gonna move down in the chat, and let's see. I know you had some Yarens, but you ever use any Michael Stevens guitars or Gustafsons? I've never tried a Gustafson. Always wanted to try one of those guitars, the Blues Master. They're a beautiful looking guitar, that's for sure. And he was kind of one of the original, I feel like, maybe early 2000s, when he came, really making an incredible boutique 59 style guitar. Those Gustafson made a huge splash, and he did it with an original looking design that's kind of like a cross between a Les Paul and a Tele. Really beautiful guitars. I've never played one, to be honest, but I'd like to try one. Somebody's up there in the top chat. Best, I'll just say Todd Flower says, best tube screamer, in your opinion, is a JHS Bonsai. I like the Bonsai a lot. I did a video of it. So many great sounds in that pedal. I've heard other people kind of say, I don't know. It sounds great to me. John Mayer likes it. I know that. He thinks they're killer. Wayfarer 320 is the fellow in the top chat. He says, Pete, is the body shape on your signature Sir different than a Sir Modern Plus? Yes. The body shape on my Sir signature is the classic Sir Standard, which is a 7/8 sort of Strat size. It's a slightly scaled down, sharper edges Strat kind of situation. It says a little bit squared off on the edges as compared to the more rounded. So it's Sir Standard body shape is, and the Modern is a different thing. That's really a 24 fret. It's designed for 24 frets, a little bit more elongated in the body shape. Yeah. Dark Starry says he has a 95 Les Paul Standard. What a year. I have a 95 Standard too. Wine red one. Good guitar. Hanging outside the room out there on the wall. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Thoughts on Line 6 wireless system? I have a G70 that I like, or G75, I think. Never used it live, to be honest. I've used it in a few situations. Oh, that might not be true. I think I did use it at a gig or two. I've only used it in kind of rehearsal situations. Here's the reason why. With most of the gigs that I do in the past 5 years, there's a lot of wireless going on. Like for instance, the French gigs I've done, like with Milan Farmer, there's dancers. They've all got wireless packs on like it's a pop gig, there's all the people in the crew. It's a big band. A lot of wireless frequencies going on. With Kyoshi Nagabushi, there's also a lot of wireless frequencies going on with a lot of people, and you're in Japan and it's kind of intense. So there can be a guy on the crew in those organizations where it's their job to actually just do wireless. That's their whole job on the tour. And their job is to go around, find clean wireless frequencies every day and give everybody their wireless frequencies. Because keep in mind, everybody's on in-ears too, generally on these gigs. So you got those in-ear packs. Everybody's, can be a band with like 8 people in it. And then there's a bunch of crew with, and they've all got in ears. So you could need like, 20 clean frequencies for wireless, and everybody needs a backup. So now you need 40 clean frequencies just for in-ears. Now you got to deal with guitars, bass, wireless microphones, et cetera, et cetera. You can end up needing like 50 frequencies or 60 frequencies or something every day that are all clean, which when you go through and you can run a test in a place and you can see where there's all this interference, then, okay, there's a clean one, and you need to pick all these frequencies. That's why they need somebody that's really on it. Nobody can be stepping on each other's frequencies and all that stuff. So the thing with the Line 6 type units is, they don't allow you to do that. They're going to allow you to pick from, like, generally speaking, like 10 channels or something like that, and that's it. You need to have wireless that you can tune to any frequency between like this range and this range. And that can be like hundreds of different. So in other words, the person that is in control of the wireless will go to your tech every day and say, okay, your wireless frequencies that you get for Peter's guitar today are 538.26 and 542.39 megahertz or whatever it is, right? And the guy writes it down, and then he goes in on my wireless and he sets it to those exact frequencies. One's at one, one's at the other, the backup. And if you have a problem with interference, they let you go to that other one. And if you have a problem during the gig with those two frequencies, you're kind of screwed, because they don't really want you to just come up with a random frequency, because now you could be stepping on somebody's wireless that's like an in-ear frequency or something like that. So that's why I don't really use the Line 6 wireless. This is not a problem that a lot of musicians would have if you're playing smaller gigs than arena tours and that kind of thing, right? But just know that in those big arena type situations, you generally speaking, it's not an option to use a wireless where you can't use a preset frequency that they're going to tell you to use. You need something that's tweakable. So that's why I use the Sures and those types of units. And that's what you'll generally see. As long as they sound good, I don't mind. Most digital wireless these days sounds exceptional. It's like as good as a cable. It shouldn't affect the tone at all. Beyond, of course, we're talking about the germanium thing and stuff, but that gets into a whole nother subject, buffers in front of things. But a wireless is a necessity on the gigs that I do, generally speaking, because you got to go out and you got to play out on the ramps and all that stuff and walk around. And, if it's a big stage, you're going to need a wireless, and you're going to need to play ball and use the type of wireless they want you to use, because you can't just, yeah, I hope that made sense. It's kind of long-winded diatribe. That said, the G75 or whatever, that it sounded great. Line 6 has kind of had their wireless sound together for a long time. They got their technology from the old X2 company. I used to use the X2 back in the day, long time ago, and it always sounded really good. It's just great, clean digital wireless that sounds great. And Line 6 bought them out, and yeah, they took that and then adapted their technology to their wireless systems. And so I think the Line 6 wirelesses sound every bit as good as the Sures, for instance. You can get a wireless from Line 6 for a couple $300 that sounds as good as like a $2,000 Shure system. But you don't have that kind of flexibility as far as setting the channels and stuff with the cheaper wirelesses. It's not a sound issue as much as it is a flexibility. Also range. One thing I'll say about the Sures, I think maybe in 3 years of using them or something with Kyoshi over in Japan, I can remember one little like, did I just have a dropout like in my in-ears? I don't know, maybe. Well, forget it, and it was like once that I ever remember that happening. It just works every day, no problem. I can go, 70 feet either direction down the ramp out here, and go all over the stage. And I never have had an issue with those Shure wireless systems with dropouts, which isn't always the case with other systems that I've used. Even my AKG used to drop out on a more regular basis. Yeah. It's about 12:52. Wow, this has gone fast today, you guys. Really fast, I feel like. It must be the coffee. I'm wired and been talking for 2 hours solid almost. Well, I'll go another 10, 15 minutes, something like that. And then I got a jet, get some work done. Hey, Pete from Brazil says, Weaverton de Silva. What's up? Nice to see you. Great musicians down there in Brazil. Congrats on your citizenship. Thank you very much. That's Mr. Pig How. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Gibson's argument is a nonsense drama. Yeah, it's like, I get their point. I try and see all sides and stand back from it. You got to protect trademarks or people will walk all over you. But do it without looking like a bunch of, bullies, I guess. And don't also, when you're trying to dig your way out of the hole that they've been in, the best thing to do would just be make great guitars and be nice to people, I think. Win that way. Win by, influencing people and their pocketbooks, as opposed to bullying big companies or small companies that are making a guitar that's sort of similar to yours, but that nobody, come on, is really going to, like, they're not going to win those court cases. It was already sort of decided, I think, with PRS. If it's like, look, judge, like, do you really think that this headstock looks like the one on this guitar? Well, no. Well, and does this look the same as if it's sharper and longer, and this is slanted more? It's like, if they're not going to win, and it's just, I don't know. From what I've heard from various sources, it's like they don't have a great case, I don't think. So who knows? I could be wrong, but I wish them all the best. I love Gibson. Who doesn't? And I'm glad they didn't go away, but don't be dicks, Nice Sykes custom. It is kind of like a John Sykes, except John would have black open coil pickups and mirrored pickup rings, right? And a mirrored pickguard. And then it would be like a Sykes custom. Exactly. You're right. Alrighty. Elscott Music Lawrence says that heavy mahogany is pretty though. I have a big 8x4 piece waiting for a special project, maybe a studio desk front end. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't have to be on a guitar, it's probably better. Like, share, and subscribe to Pete's channel. Thumbs up, please. Thanks, says Metalhead Hippie. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, good sir. Yeah, please do. Please do. Please do. And on 5150 says that I look like Pierce Brosnan in my photo with probably the one with my certificate, I would think, from the becoming a citizen this past week. Thanks. Hey, if I can look like that guy, I'm happy. Paul Gilbert uses the bonsai. Does he? That's interesting. Bonsai from JHS. I didn't know that. What else we got here? How did Steve Stevens affect your interest in Evertune and EMG? I did find it interesting. One thing, Lauren, that I didn't know about the Evertune bridge is that you can kind of tune how much when you bend a string that it affects the pitch. I didn't realize that you could make it so the low strings will stay in tune more by setting the tension a certain way, and that the high strings are bendable. So that was interesting to me. EMG, I still like passive pickups, to be honest, but I do like them for bass though. I like the active pickups for bass. Yeah. Folks are talking about YouTube likes and how, yeah, that's true. If you like the video, like if everybody hits the thumbs up on this, it does actually help with the, it's all about like algorithms and all that stuff. So if anybody wants to share this or hit the thumbs up, I do appreciate it. And it does help with building the channel. It does. Only if you want to, of course. Play some Skinner. Helix update. Are you looking forward to it? Any insights? That's from Marty. I don't have any insights. Actually, I'm not sure. Updating. To be honest, I never look forward to doing those things because it's like when it's like you want to install a new update and you just wanted to sit down and play, and then you end up spending the next 15 minutes updating. Right? Software updates. My computer asks me to do them every day, and it drives me insane. It's like, no, I want to work right now. I don't want to update. I don't have time. I got things to do. But I do appreciate that they're always giving us new things to play with. That is cool. Okay. Bought a mint 1982 Dan Smith Strat, says Major 7. Oh, mama, I haven't put it down. Is that like one of the early reissues, like 57 and 62 reissues? Is that the one you mean? I wonder. Because those guitars, that was right around the time I was starting to play guitar, and I remember them well. And they were trying to kind of get back to it. Do you ever hear from Tora, the TC dude? That's the Feline Empire. I just saw him a couple days ago. Didn't have a lot of time at Sweetwater, to be honest. If anybody was there at the Gearfest thing, I was slammed, man. I worked for 8 hours solid. It was 5 o'clock before I knew it. I got there at about 9, and 5 rolled around. I'd been going all day, talking, doing things, doing the clinic, doing the meet and greet. After the clinic, what else did I do? A YouTube panel, which was really fun. I got to see Tim Pierce. But I went out for dinner. I was supposed to do a jam that night. By 6 o'clock, I was like, I was still jet lagged. And I was like, I got to get some food in my body. Like, I think I got to go. And I need to get a meal. And then I was literally at 9 o'clock falling asleep in the car on the way back to the hotel. Like Matt was talking to me from line 6, and I started talking. I said something to him, and I realized I go, dude, I'm dreaming right now. Like I was dreaming with whatever I just said. I can't form a sentence anymore. I was so tired, and I was in bed and out by 10:30 that night, and I was up the next morning at 5:30 or 6 or whatever to fly, and I left. So it was a whirlwind. But so I did see Tor for like maybe 2 minutes and just got to talk to him for a minute. And that was the first time I'd seen him since I made those TC videos in Denmark. Sorry, I'm so stuffed up. I'm getting over it's the other thing. I've been sick this week. Yeah. Why aren't all the YouTubers saying click on the bell now? I say that too. It gives you an alert when I watch a new video, or when I launch a new video. You'll get a bell when you open your browser, I guess. And that it just helps with your views. That's all. It's a thing where it's like, hey, Pete's put out a new video, and it's like, oh, I'll go check that out. It just helps, to build your channel. It's really YouTube is a funny thing, but it's the amount of views you get as well as your retention. Like the longer you watch a video for, subscribers, all this stuff plays into the kind of how the channel builds and whatnot. Rich Monks is in the top chat. Thanks, Rich. And he says, in terms of skill, I have college grad fingers with a toddler's grasp of theory. Probably like me. What's the best way to gain chord knowledge that won't crush my tiny brain? I have a good book. Is it just repetition? Well, yeah, it is kind of just repetition. I mean, there's probably some great courses out there, but just know that basically, once you know your major and minor triads, there's not really that many more notes you need to worry about. You're just adding, it's a first, a third, and a fifth, or a first, a flat third, and a fifth for a major or a minor triad, respectively. And then when you add another note on there, if you add a seventh to that, first, third, fifth, if you add that note, that's the seventh of the scale. Right? If you add that seventh, now you've got a seventh chord. So, right? That's a major 7 chord once you add that seventh step in the scale. If you flat that seventh, okay, now you've got a first, third, fifth, and flat. Now you got a 7th chord. Okay. If you, on the top, add first, third, fifth, and then here's the A. If you add the B there, now you've got a 9, right? So that's all it is it's just you're adding these extensions onto the chord. Now you can add more than, obviously on the guitar you're limited because it's hard, you can't play like all the notes when you start adding like, you know, the 7th and the 9th, and something else is going to have to drop out because you don't have enough notes. But I don't know, that's, just know that it's not really that hard. If you know the 7 notes, you know, of the major scale, and then the kind of the surrounding notes, the flats or the augmented, you know, if a note goes up or goes down, it's really pretty simple. A good guitar teacher should be able to explain chord, you know, theory to you and how chords are built within a lesson or two, I would think. And there's probably great books and resources to do that stuff now too. But it really is just that. Once you've got your triads, then you're just adding notes, other notes in the scale, and you know, you just need to know what those notes are and what they're called. You know, for example, the 7th, or you know, for flat 7, right? Now you've got a dominant 7th chord, you know, A7 as opposed to an A major 7, right? Minor 7, you know, once you flat the 3rd and then add the flat 7th, you know, now you've got a minor 7. So minor 6, you know, it just it's really pretty easy stuff. So get a good teacher. And I know it can be hard. It's like, I do feel like one of my strengths as an instructor, and also, but like some of you guys are probably here watching me and stuff like that, is I feel like I have an ability to break things down in a simple way and explain it slowly enough that it hopefully doesn't go over people's heads. I've thought that that's one of my skills, like a simple way of explaining things like I just did. You need to find a teacher that can do that can do it at your pace, and that's not confusing you and not giving you too much information, but also not, you know, not enough information, just that can read your pace and kind of read the room and explain things to you. But chord theory, chords are built off scales, you know, C major scale. You got those 7 notes, and basically it's just various combinations of those 7 notes. Root, 3rd, 5th. There's a C major chord, right? So that's it, really. There's a C minor chord, root, flat 3rd and 5th, and from there on, it's just adding more notes out of that same scale, and you're building chords. Alrighty, I'm going to go to the end here because I got to split pretty soon. It's 1:04. I'll hang for another 10 or so. Do you put your H9 in the effects loop? Yes, I do. And what sounds do you use on it? Mainly, I use the vintage delay. There's a lot in that pedal. I agree. I like the vintage digital delay a lot. That's kind of my favorite delay to use in it. And I use the spring reverb algorithm, the Hall reverb algorithm. There's one called Earth, I think. And then I use the black hole reverb a lot for kind of special effecty kind of stuff. That I really like that. Black hole is a great thing for, you know, kind of like ambient, you know, huge, you know, Blade Runner-y sounding stuff, for lack of a better term. Hey Pete, any opinions on Bare Knuckle the Mule? Oh, by the way, on the H9, the rotary is great too. Really like the Leslie sounds on the H9. Some of the best Leslie that, you know, I struggle getting that good of a Leslie sound out of other multi-effects units. Okay, any opinions on Bare Knuckle Mule? I haven't tried a set myself. They're probably not that far off from Thornbucker's, although the neck pickup is an Alnico 4 and mine's a 5, so that is different. But I know Steve Stevens really likes the Mules. Heard good things about him. Hey Pete, you're a good guitarist. Fake Hersey says, thank you. Appreciate that. And let's see. Rick Beato's channel has great chord theory content. Yeah, for sure. He's a much smarter man than me when it comes to that. Pete, do you have an ebook or series for getting better? I don't. I have a bunch of, you know, I do have a lesson playlist on my YouTube if you want to check out some of the guitar lessons on there. I've got everything from picking to bending to breaking out of ruts. There's all kinds of lessons there if you want to check those out. But I'll probably invent some kind of guitar course one of these days. I have a lessons. I have a few lessons on jamtrackcentral.com if you want to check those out as well. How to play songs from my first record. A few different lessons there. I think they're like $4.99 each. And I've also got the Guitar Nerd lesson, which teaches you how to play some of the stuff off of my first record, Guitar Nerd, and that's on my website. If you're interested in checking that out, it's just a simple download off my website, and it's also $5. It's cheap. Okay. Moving to the end of the chat. Candace says, "Gotta go now. Thanks for sharing." Absolutely. Happy to be here. Stiletto Ace says, "Build great guitars again at reasonable prices and they will win back." Yeah, you're speaking about Gibson. Yeah, just that's the way to do it. Just build great guitars, concentrate on that, put your money and resources into that unless somebody's really blatantly breaking your trademark, or, like by copying the exact headstock shape or putting Gibson on the headstock. If that, I would say go after them then. But otherwise, don't leave people alone. If the guitars are clearly distinguishable and if you think you're going to lose in court anyway, don't try and bully people. Because you ain't gonna win. Actually, it's not gonna happen. I've heard from enough lawyers about it that say they didn't. It's gonna end up costing them money. It's gonna end up costing them legal fees. They're gonna get countersued, and it's gonna be a stupid decision in the long run. Do Thornbuckers work well in Les Pauls? That's what's in this one. Love them in here. They sound great in this guitar. All right. What else we got? What else? On an acoustic, if you go up or down a gauge of strings, is there any setup needed other than a truss rod adjustment? Nothing else you can really do. That's from Matt. Nothing else you can really do. But yeah, just do the truss rod. You may or may not need to do the truss rod depending on how much of what your guitar is made out of and different things like that. You probably will have to do a little truss rod tweak. But that's about it. Okay. Chris Schultz is asking Braxall if the strings catch in the dents of his frets. Are all guitars like that, or is it just me? That's gonna be a pain in the ass if you get a dent in a stainless steel fret, especially. I hate the feel of that. Ding 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 on either side of that nick. Nickel is sort of more forgiving, but definitely. Okay, do I have a video on how to do pinch harmonics? I don't think so, but it's really pretty easy. It's just getting your thumb all the way to the bottom of the pick. So there's my thumb and the pick, and you got to get your thumb, just if normally you hold the pick there, move your thumb right down to the bottom, and you'll find that magic place where where you can hear the harmonic jumping out, I bet, even through the mic, right? You get a different harmonic depending on where you pick. You'll get a different harmonic, and you can see where my thumb is. It's literally the string hits the pick, and then right after hits my thumb, almost simultaneously, but just right after. All right. Okay. Ceramic pickups can sound good. Some are way hotter than some because of stability of gaussing them. That's Brett. Yeah, I like some ceramic pickups for some stuff these days. Super distortion is a classic. Into an old Marshall, turn it on 10 and tell me it doesn't sound like Van Halen 1. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. Going down from 12s to 11s. Looks like I don't need to take it to the shop. Love the advice. Thanks. Yeah, just a truss rod adjustment, Matt. That should be all you need to do if you go from 12s to 11s. I play around with acoustic tension strings, sometimes different. I use 11s now too, by the way. I have a good 100-watt head, but it's too loud for home play. Should I sell trade for a small amp or get a reactive power soak? That's Steve Hunter. In many ways, you can do it now. You can get a reactive load and load it all the way to line level if you want to, or something like a power station from Fryette, and have a great usable amp. So you don't necessarily need to sell it unless you want to, but that's what we make the PT15 for too, so that it's all built into the one amp, and you've got a little more flexibility there. Todd Flower says the employees, like the guy from Levi's and Agnes C, etc., want to make great guitars, but the investors just want money. The only way to make money, though, for them will be making great guitars, because that's all people really care about, right? With with Gibson. So what is this guy doing? Another weird. What's this? Like Caitlin Talent. Who's that? Is live Caitlin? Is this like some sort of weird like troll thing or what in my chat at the end here? Well, it might be a good time to go because there's like some sort of. I'm just gonna. What is this Caitlin Talent thing? I just hid somebody on my channel. I hope I didn't do it by accident. Oh, somebody. This is bullshit, isn't it? Like, this is so strange. What is happening? Like, the chat just got like attacked by weirdos. I think, didn't it? Well, time to go. That's so weird. So strange. God. Sorry, you guys. I'm a fucking pain in the ass. I tell you what, with some of the trolley stuff these days just gets so weird because this is just like a bot invasion all of a sudden just happened in the chat and I don't understand it. I'm going to answer one more question and then I'll split. Sorry, guys. Christopher Kroom says, I guess I got to look into getting a moderator eventually because all of a sudden I don't know how to deal with this crap, you know. Hey, Pete, are you using a wet, dry, wet rig when you perform in Japan? It's not wet, dry, wet. It's just 2 amps, and I run the effects in the loop of the amplifier. So it's you know, the send of the first head essentially goes out to my time-based effects, and it runs through a few different time-based effects on my board in series, and then it comes stereo out of the last one into the return of the main amp and a second one. So not technically wet, dry, wet. Yeah. God, what a pain in the ass. You got robo spammed, says Brian. Yeah, so what do you do about that? What do I do about this robo spam stuff? Maybe if somebody's got any suggestions, hit me at the contact form on my email and let me know what to do. I need to come up with better solutions as far as this because I don't want this stuff. It's nice it happened right at the end because I don't really need to worry about it. But if you guys give me mod, says iHeart. Well, I'm not gonna worry about it this week, but it's so weird. You need a moderator to kill the bots. But how do you kill the bots? Like it looks like there's 40 billion of them. So I don't know how to deal with that. So dumb. Screw up a good thing, right? Oh boy. All right, you guys. Well, I'm gonna split for this week, but we are not bots. Bunch of. If you don't want to talk about guitar pickups, then what are you doing here? Raid by Caitlin Tilint. So annoying. Robo spam. You are bots. Bye. I'll see you guys next week. Somebody tell me how to fix this stuff. Somebody that knows about this stuff. And have a great week. I'll be here same time, same place next Sunday. And we will hang. Okay, y'all. Hey, by the way, if you're in San Diego area, see you down there this week at Pitbull. If you can come by on Friday, I'll be down there doing my clinic. Hope to meet some of you. And some good videos coming this week from the one from Paul Davids, as well as whatever I can get done for video demos this week. Like I said, I'm going to start working on a Synergy Syn 1 demo, get that going with my amp, as well as I got to get a PT15. Some people were asking about PT15 channel 2 and 3, and they suggested I play some Andy Timmons and some Jeff Beck, and to see if I could get close to those tones. So I'm going to make a video like that and put that out this week as well. Okay, everybody have a great week. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.